Welcome to episode 23 of Northern Lights, the online chat show which focuses on football in the north and northeast of Scotland. My name is Martin Johnston, and each week I'm joined by our resident journalist and fellow Rothesloon, Dave Edwards. Also joining Dave and I each week are three well-known names from North football, both from the past and the present. Just a few guys reminiscing about the good old days and from time to time giving a distanced opinion on the modern game. A bit like Soccer AM meets the Antiques Roadshow. Our first guest played for 14 years in the Highland League before collecting his first championship medal. Charlie Brown signed for Clydebank as a 16-year-old when the Bankies were members of the Scottish League. After 4 seasons at Kilbowie Park, Charlie joined Kilpatrick Juveniles before heading north and signing for Forest Mechanics in 1995. Charlie would spend 13 seasons with the Can-Cans before moving to Bucky Thistle, and where he won his first Highland League title in his second season in 2010. However, at the end of that season, Charlie returned to Mossett Park, where he collected his second league title in 2012. Charlie retired from playing in 2018, and he now forms part of Charlie Rowley's coaching staff, and he has given Mechanics almost 24 years in service in total. Please welcome the fans' favourite, much loved, Charlie Brown.
Evening, Charlie.
All right, evening.
Silence is golden. For my memories, Charlie, you're never
I was never quiet
in the park, that's for sure.
Charlie, you started your football career way back at Clydebank. Tell me, I've been to Kilbowie Park. Was it not the first all-seated stadium in Scotland, if I remember rightly? There was bench seating all the way around the ground.
Yeah, there was, Dave. Yeah. Wooden. 3/4 of the way was wooden seats. They had some plastic down there in them days, so they got some seats in that as well. So it's the first 10,000 seated stadium.
And it was run by two brothers, wasn't it? The Steedman brothers. What were they like, Charlie?
Ian was a bit dry. Jack Steedman had a bit of the patter about him, but they were a good family to work for, because they had their car business and that as well. It was Colin, Andrew, Jack and Ian. There was 4 of them, nephews as well, that helped run the club.
Some great players came out to Clydebank, Charlie, not only yourself, of course. I remember Big Gallagher, the goalkeeper, and of course, the late, great Davy Cooper was a Clydebank boy, and he started his career at Clydebank, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and then left, and then he came back just the season I was leaving. So he was, so I was only there a few weeks with him.
What kind of guy was he, Charlie?
Quiet.
Bit like yourself.
Quiet guy. But he liked to give the boys the dodgy tips for the bookies.
Honestly?
He gave them the tips, and there was one time that he came in and said he had a great tip, and one of the boys went away and put £500 on it.
Honestly?
I fell at the first. So training wasn't great the next time they come in. That one.
Yeah. If I remember rightly, Davy Cooper never learned to drive. He always got driven, or he took the bus or a train or whatever.
Yeah. Most of the boys did at Clydebank. Because the train station was right next to the pitch. So they just get the train in, and then after the game they could have a couple of beers and that, and then jump in the train again. Go back.
Bit like the Highland League.
Yeah.
Charlie, it's a delight to see you, my friend, and welcome to Northern Lights.
Cheers, Dave. Thanks.
Our second guest this evening has had a career in football spanning over 5 decades. Willie Garner was signed by Aberdeen from junior side Campsie Black Watch in 1973, and he would remain at Pittodrie for 7 seasons under 4 different managers and collecting a Premier League winners' medal in 1980. The following season, Willie joined Celtic, and after 2 seasons and 2 loan spells with Alloa Athletic and Rochdale respectively, Willie made the permanent move to Alloa as player-manager in 1983. A year later, Willie found himself back at Pittodrie before crossing the city to Cove Rangers in 1986. After a season as player-manager of junior side Roseland Sport, Willie was appointed player-manager of Keith Football Club. In 1990, Willie was on the move again, briefly with FC Stonywood, then with Berwick Rangers. Willie would then have spells as a player manager with Craig Royston, Newton Grange Star and Hart Hill Royal over a 10-year period. In 2004, Willie took up the reins at Glenrothes and then joined Tayport, where he oversaw a Premier League title win in 2010. Willie's last appointment was in 2014 when he took charge of the now defunct Ballingray Rovers. A warm welcome to the much-travelled Willie Garner.
Thank you very much, Martin. Well done.
A lot of clubs to try and pack in there, Willie.
There's a few that you've missed.
I'm probably sure, I'm quite
And,
sure.
and there's a couple that I wouldn't have even mentioned, but hey.
Well, it's that research assistant we've got here. She goes by the name of Wikipedia.
Okay, good old Wiki.
Willie, a large proportion of your footballing life was spent up here in the north and northeast, and you were saying to us that you're just about getting used to the accent now.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I've just bought a house back in Stone. I get the keys on Friday. So I've been down in Edinburgh for 26 years now. And I've bought a house up at this Uri estate. I said, moving back up the end of October.
Wonderful. But you like
I know the
your
lingo.
golf, of course. You like your golf, of course, Willie. Some good golf courses up here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I haven't played Stonehaven for about 45 years. And I've got a friend who's a member in there, so he says, I'll get you in there. So it's not, to be fair, it's only 5 minutes for the house. That Uri estate's just off the roundabout at the start of the new bypass. So, so I'll go down and have a look at that and see where, but I'll get a membership somewhere, that's for sure.
Good. Well, you're one ahead of me. I've never played Stonehaven. I've admired it from the train many, many times. It looks a wee bit tricky on occasion, I would think.
I drove in, we were up doing a couple of things a couple of weeks ago, and I said I drove into the car park, and the views are spectacular. I don't know if any of you guys have played it, you know, but it's so rugged, and you're up in the cliff edges and a lot of the holes. But I believe you've got to sort of opinion. I'm all right. I'm a very slim 17 stone, so I think I'll be able to stay on my feet when the wind's blowing. But I think it could be a wee bit rough at times. Yeah.
Excellent. And you'll be well placed for the new course up at the Uri estate, Uri House, because a pal of mine called Graham Webster, who built Meldrum House, he's developing that course at the moment. There's quite a lot of work being done on it in association with Jack Nicholas, and it's going to be one cracker of a course when it eventually opens in a couple of years' time.
So that's actually happening then, Dave, is that?
It is going to be happening. I spoke to Graham a couple of months ago. Work is proceeding at the moment. It is going to be happening.
I'll need to get my name down as an ambassador.
There you go, Willie. That's you're the man.
Good, do that.
Willie,
you've got my number as well. Do that. I'm holding you to that, Dave. You better do that.
I'll do that. Leave that with me. Willie, it's a delight to see you, and welcome to the programme.
Thanks, guys.
Our third and final guest has been billed as the no-nonsense defender that opposing fans just love to hate. Eric Watson started out at juvenile level with Stonehaven Youths, and he stepped up to the amateur ranks with his local side, Lothermuir, in 1999. In 2001, Eric progressed to the junior ranks with Montrose Roselee, where he would spend 6 seasons before putting pen to paper for Cove Rangers in 2007. Over the next 12 seasons, Eric would collect a glittering array of silverware, including 6 Highland League titles. When Cove stepped up to the SPFL, Eric signed for Inverurie Local Works, where he is currently preparing for his 14th consecutive season in the Highland League. Welcome to Northern Lights, Eric Watson.
Cheers, Martin.
Good to see you, Eric. You're looking fighting fit, if that's the right term to use.
Nice. Been back at pre-season, so no, I've been doing a lot of hard running, so I should be fit.
Well, I hope you're tired out. Well, you see, here's me caught out already. I'm going to wait to say I hope you're tired out sufficiently for Saturday, but as everybody knows, it's actually Sunday night tonight, and the game was yesterday. So, hey-ho, there you go.
Eric, nice to see you, my friend. You're looking very fit, very well.
Cheers, Dave. Good to see you as well.
Good man. I don't know if I've forgiven you from a couple of years ago, a game at the end of the season, venue McKessick Park, Rothes Cove Rangers, free kick for Cove from the halfway line. The ball sails into the net from the halfway line, more or less, aided by Eric Watson, leading the Rothes goalie, and allowing him to jump. Now, I was a bit distraught at the time, but I suppose I've forgiven you now.
That's right. a midweek game, wasn't it? A Wednesday.
It was a
And,
Wednesday night, yes. You remember it as well.
It must have been October holidays because I was staying up in Elgin at a lodge with the family, so I just nipped down to play the football at night. So I claimed that goal. I got a flick on that.
You did claim it. I don't know if I gave you the paper the next day or no. I'm not sure.
I don't think you did. No, I was mine. Minnie might, is it Minnie? It was the goalie. I think he might have.
It was the goalie. He couldn't get anywhere near it.
Oh.
Often as men of many clubs, Eric, you're a man of very few clubs. Your career has been with 3 clubs in the Highland League, basically. 2 clubs in the Highland League and Montrose Rosalie in the juniors, apart from your days at Stonehaven Youths. Your time at Cove, you had many, many highlights. Can I ask you to pick just one as we make this introduction?
Probably the one in the league the first time. That was really special because the team, I never knew anything about the Highland League. The team was kind of thrown together by John. I think it must have been about 10 new faces came in, and it was a slow start actually. But then once we got going, we just kept winning, kept scoring late goals. The amount of late goals we scored that year was unbelievable. And it was at the start of the season. We were up at Wick. I remember having a few beers, speaking to Watty on the way back down the road. And asked him, I goes, where should we be finishing this season in the league? And he said to me, if we finish in behind the big 3 or 4, we'll be doing well. And Clydebank would be 4th or 5th. So we'd done well just to carry on and get all the way at the end and eventually win it.
You were a great servant to Cove Rangers. I'm sure you'll be an equally great servant as the years go by for Inverary Locos. Eric, a delight to see you and welcome to Northern Lights.
Cheers, Dave.
David, first of all, got to get this across because I see you're not wearing your one yet, but in tribute to Martin Johnston, my namesake, I'm wearing my Dodie Weir t-shirt, came in the post at the weekend.
Peter head's a bit closer, and because I live beside Cullen, so it's a wee bit closer, isn't it, for the postie?
Well, could maybe be that, I don't know. Viewing numbers. Now, we appealed last week. We're asking viewers, we're saying it would be great if we could reach the 20,000 mark before the series ends next week. And I am delighted to announce, we drum roll here, Dave. This morning, we reached 20,036.
Amazing.
Well done. Well done.
Listen, with £1 for everyone, Dave, you could buy your membership at Uri Golf Club. instead of mooching your way around the north of Scotland.
Now, that's quite some achievement, Martin, because when we started at 21, 22 weeks ago, we thought we'd do it for a few weeks, and we thought maybe 30 or 40 folk might watch the programme. We're still averaging around 900 a show, and I think that's a testament to Highland League football.
I'm just blown away. I mean, I think a lot has got to do with the fact that folk can't get out and it's their only respite. But no, we've had a pretty decent mix of guests as well, and it's been really encouraging. And be honest, if it was only 20, 30 a week, I don't know if it would have lasted 24 or 23 weeks as it is at the moment. Mm-hmm. As I say, although they're trying the best to stop us, I do have to go back to my day job. And that kicks in first weekend in October. For how long I don't know, that we're going to get a bash. So just with the time commitment, but we've got a few announcements to make on that next week. So watch this space, as I say. Any shout outs, Dave?
Well, I got a text tonight from, well, somebody we all know, Huntley legend Martin Stewart, saying that he's really going to miss the show when it stops. He hopes it maybe comes back in and maybe a different guise at one time. But he sat all the way through the 4.25 hours we did. Remember, boys, 4.25 hours last week. Hopefully it won't be 4.25 hours this week. I was bursting for a loo, but I sat where I was. It was a marathon session last week, that's for sure.
Well, I was...
Is that under the loo? Is that under the loo you're in?
No, quite well, no.
As you know, Dave, I've had issues on a number of shows with lighting. Still have this very bright light here. I'm stopping short of getting my daughter to put makeup on there. But I found it a bit strange last week because it was actually getting lighter as the show was coming towards the end. And there was birds singing outside the dining room window, so we're making progress. Dave, last week's head scratcher Remind us what the question was.
What was it? It was a two-part question. It was about Clachnacudden. Now, Clachnacudden were one of the founder members of Highland League. Way back in 1893-94, there were 7 members joined at that time. Well, there was actually 8, but Ross County left within a couple of months. The clubs who joined were Inverness Thistle, Caledonian, Clachnacudden, as we said, Charlie, Forest Mechanics were one of the member clubs, Inverness Union, Inverness Citadel, and the Cameron Highlanders. That's the 7 clubs that were the first members of the Highland League. Added to that were Ross County, but they resigned their membership in November of that first year, 1893. The other part of the question was the name Clachnacudden. What does it mean? Where does it come from? Well, it comes from the Gaelic. Clachnacudden means tub of the stones. And that's from a well-known landmark around at the time, around about the ferry area of Inverness. It's where the washerwoman used to come down to the water and clean their clothes on the stone, rub the clothes against the stone to make the clothes come clean. That's what it meant, tub of the stones. And it was a Gaelic, that's what Clachnacudden meant. And would you not be surprised that nobody got it right?
Fascinating stuff, Dave. I'm intrigued to know who made your team of the season that inaugural season?
Well, Eric Watson's been in every team of the season I've done. But I actually wasn't covering that one. It was Mike Tremlett was covering that season. So it was, I was taking a back seat at that time. But if Eric had been about, and Charlie Brown's made my team of the year on more than one occasion, Willie, you've yet to make my team of the year.
You jest, Dave, but nothing would surprise me that Tremlett would claim to have been around at that time, that's for sure.
You could be. There's a future guest for you, Martin.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I think we'll move on. I think I've lost his phone number. Dave, on this day, 1986, enlighten us.
Yes, 27 September 1986. The World Highland League fixtures taking place. Our team, Rothes, did not have a game that day, Martin, because it was a second round replays of the Scottish Qualifying Cup. The results in the Cup that day, Bucky Thistle 0, Inverness Thistle 1, and after extra time at Victoria Park, it finished Ross County 3, Fort William 2. So a tight one there up at Dingwall. In the RB Farker Highland League, as it was in 1986, scores from that day. Cove Rangers 5, Nairn County 1. No, Eric, you weren't playing. Devonville 4, Flora Rangers 2. Forest Mechanics 2, Clachnacudden 4. And Charlie, you weren't playing either. It was a late kick-off in the Fraserburgh Clach game. That was probably because Charlie Duncan hadn't filed his team in time. It was Huntly 1, Peterhead 0. And finally, Lossiemouth 0, Keith 3. And that was a roundup of the scores that day. I can tell you, in the Cove Rangers 5-1 win over Nairn County, Gary Clark scored a hat-trick for Cove Rangers that day. The other goals were scored by Johnston and Milne. Now, I would hazard a guess that would be Colin Milne, but I'm not sure. I don't think it would have been Martin Johnston. Might have been.
I'm sure Martin will let us know if it was.
You do that, Martin.
We'd be glad to hear from him.
Good man.
Charlie, I'm going to take you right back to the early days, growing up in the big city in the west coast of Scotland there. Schools football, juvenile football. Did you come up through any boys club ranks? Or?
Yeah, I played for West Park United. That was one of the bigger youth clubs down there in Bishop Briggs. Played for them since I was under 8s to under 15s. We had a very successful youth team. So we did. We won the Scottish Cup under 16s, and we played at older levels as well. Under 15s we were, and we played in the under 16 tournament. Maybe of Tillydrone Strollers. So we had a successful team there.
We often think, or are you of the opinion that the Glasgow approach, the West Coast approach as youngsters, and they sometimes just have, and maybe Eric wouldn't agree with this, but they seem to have that wee bit extra desire as youngsters, and we often see it with the odd exception. You find juvenile football teams in the north seldom, excel themselves in cup competitions in the West Coast, and certainly in junior, with the exception of maybe a handful of clubs in the East who have had success in the Scottish Junior Cup, etc. The West Coast clubs just seem to have that extra bit passion and desire. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, it is, because I think facilities has got a lot to do with that, Martin. Because down in Glasgow, there's about 5 or 6 different areas where there's like 12 pitches, and up in the north here, there's very little areas. I know Aberdeen's got pitches and that, but Murray hasn't got things like that. So the kids, they're not really interested as much as what they should be.
Yeah.
But I remember, coming home from school, not even going home, get up the park, 12 years playing football, in and get my tea, and then away back out playing football again. Because there was pitches there with goals, and that's just what we wanted to do.
And the quality of pitches, Charlie, I quite often have met teams who have returned for cup games, be it amateur or junior, and they've more than often had maybe a bit of a doing. They maybe won't admit that they haven't been able to match them skillfully on the park. The first thing that gets thrown at you is, oh well, but we've played in that horrendous red blaze rubbish down there. But that's part of the toughening up process as well, yeah.
Well, you had the red blaze and the black ash. That was down in Posel. Horrible stuff if you fell in it. But West Park, we played on the red ash, and we went a whole season undefeated at home.
You were saying something, Eric? No?
Sorry, it's a guard dog.
Dave, could I just say, Dave, you had any experience of playing in that kind of surfaces as a youngster?
Yeah, I played on it. The first time I played on it was 1971. The Scotland schoolboys played. Who did we play? We played a schoolboy team from down in Lanarkshire, and it landed up being a red ash pitch. And I'd never played on blaze before, and I had a tracksuit bottom, but I still skint my legs, skint my bum, skint my knees, and then I didn't like it very much. And then when I moved down south to work, I landed up as with Roo Amateurs in the amateur league, and I played on it once there as well, and that made me decide to retire because I knackered my knee, skint my leg, skint my bum again, and after that I became goalkeeping coach and what was it now? I had to organise all the nights out and things like that. They called it, they had a name for it, social convener. It was, so social convener and goalkeeping coach at Roo Amateurs, and that was the end of my footballing career. But I didn't like the blaze at all. As a goalkeeper, it was a nightmare.
Yep, and I dare say, teams from the north that weren't accustomed to that, going down there, they may well have been a bit apprehensive of putting a 100% challenge at the risk of getting injury, where, West Coast clubs, it was part of the everyday football. But it's certainly, it's on record that teams very, very often you will use that as part of the excuse for coming back for like Glasgow with a heavy drubbing, but it didn't affect their night out, that's for sure.
I don't think Eric would have enjoyed it.
Willie, come in, Willie.
Aye. Charlie, just a question, because I played in Ash Parks a lot as well. But I'm from the Central Belt in Falkirk, and our school had great grass pitches, and going to Glasgow to play cup ties was difficult at times. But we found when the Glasgow teams come through the grass parks, they found it quite difficult as well.
Yeah.
I don't know how you felt with that.
There was a big change. The bounce of the ball and all that on the red blaze was, it was like the AstroTurf, the old AstroTurf you used to get. And then when you're on the grass, it just dying in front of you.
Yeah.
and it was a total change.
Some of the Ash Parks, honestly, the throwing line was about a yard away from the edge of the 18-yard box.
Yeah, some of them were, yeah. And then you had the next pitch right next to you as well. Or somebody in a motorbike driving right through the middle of it.
Oh, well, you'd have been well accustomed.
For you.
When you went to Cove, you'd have been well accustomed to a tight pitch then. That's what you were taking throw-ins for the edge of the corner of the penalty area. Charlie, you eventually you come up through the ranks and you sign for Clydebank. Was that an S forms initially, or what was the?
I signed the S forms to start with, and I went in full time with them for 2 years, and then I done 2 year part time with them as well. Played in the youths, and then I get farmed out to Clydebank juveniles, so I could get a game on a Saturday. And still played with the reserve team during the week.
Of course, Clydebank would have been riding high at the time you signed, because I think they reached the semi-finals of the Scottish Cup that season. So
yeah, they played Celtic.
It had been deemed a pretty big move for yourself, yeah?
Well, we were actually in Holland when they played it. The youth team had went away for a tour of Holland, so we never got to see that game against Celtic.
So tell us about some of the guys that were your teammates at that time. Anybody we would know?
We had a boy Colin Sutherland. He actually went down to Doncaster and Blackpool. He played the Clydebank first team. And they called him Psycho. Everywhere he went, what a head case. Absolutely. He'd just run right through a brick wall. So he would. 10 times worse than Neil White. So he was. He got told he was playing in making his debut for the first team. He got told on the Wednesday, and they were having a five-a-side game on the Friday, and he injured 3 of the first team boys. He was that excited. He was just going right through everything. Like Gary Bowman, he played as well. Great left foot. Great player. Sean Sweeney, he played under 21 at Scotland, so he did. John Davis, that's Billy Davis, the ex-Derby, Motherwell. His brother, he was really gifted, really good player. So
and did Clydebank carry a big playing staff at that time?
Yeah, they did. Yep.
We were talking before we went on the show about Kilbowie Park. And I think David mentioned it was the first all-seated stadium in Scotland, albeit bench seating. But I was going to say to Dave at the time, there was a Highland League club that used to have a bench right round the perimeter fence. That must have been a first. I can't think I've seen that anywhere else. But you could actually sit on a bench and lean on the handrail and watch a game. And that was, Dave?
That was Rothes FC McKessick Park. I used to help paint it.
So obviously a very forward-thinking club, way ahead of their years.
That was Jimmy Cannon.
Tell us a wee bit, Charlie, about the Steedmans, the people who ran. And I'm going to bore you again a wee bit of Rothes. Obviously, Clydebank changed format many times over the years. They had one season where they had a relationship with East Stirling. They called themselves East Stirling Clydebank. And their first ever Scottish Cup game was against
Rothes.
So I think there's many teams could say they were beaten in the Scottish Cup by East Stirling Clydebank, because they're only in the go for 1 year. But it was a family run club, was it?
Yeah, they were a family run club. They had the car business, a Hyundai car business as well. But most of them were in the offices at Kilbowie. We didn't really see them very often. You know, sometimes you would see Jack walking about, because he was part of the SFA as well. But you know, you didn't really see them much. Didn't have dealings with them quite often. As I said earlier on, Ian was a bit dry. Jack liked to have a wee bit of a laugh, and the other ones, you know, you very rarely seen them.
And who did you have as a management team, Charlie? Who took you to the club in the first instance?
the Steedmans did all the signings. They were the ones that went out and scouted the players and that, and did the signings. Jim Fallon and Tony Gervais, they were the first team coaches. It was Danny McGrain, he was the trainer in the morning for the full-time boys.
And of course, the late great Davy Cooper was a former bankie. Was he around at that time when you were there?
Just a few weeks. It wasn't a long time.
Did you meet the great man? Did you have any?
Yeah.
Any stories you can tell us?
Just the one, the bookies and that. You know, that's. But watching him in training, it was just all left foot. I know he was on the Blaze, the red ash training as well. You know, so we didn't shy away from that.
And you also had a very famous sponsor at that time as well, Wet, Wet, Wet.
Yeah.
Now you've got whether it's true or no, you're bound to have a Marty Pello story. You've got to have one for the lads for that.
Just when we only met them once, when they came into the for a photo shoot with the new strips and that, I got to go out from the dressing room over to the office with a strip for them to put it on, and I walked in, shut the door, walked in, and Marty Pello's just sitting there, cigarette in the hand and the pipe, just sitting there. I thought, Christ.
So was he stage struck, Charlie? Did he ask you for your autograph?
No, I never got that. That's just for special people.
Charlie, before we leave you, I've got to ask a question. Obviously, it's well documented the demise of the club in 2002. That must have been heartbreaking for the likes of yourself who'd spent so much time there.
Yeah, it was. Especially when the stories we got was they'd sold the ground to Sainsbury's, one of the shopping centres that was across the railway track. But then that turned out that it wasn't true. They'd sold it to some other business venture that they were planning to do. And then they were going to go to Belfast, or Dublin, sorry, to play over there. But that fell through as well. There was a lot of stories going about and that, but you just didn't know. As I said, the Steedmans never come out and officially said what was wrong with the club or how it went under, because everybody thought it was run it was a tight ship. So we thought it was quite safe, but it went under.
And of course, there is a reincarnation now, Clydebank in the juniors.
Yep.
And I think they've got a very close affinity with Clydebank of old. And they are a very ambitious side, and I believe they do have aspirations to one day come up through the pyramid system and get into the senior ranks again. Would you like to see that happen? Yeah,
I would love to see that happen. I keep in touch with some of the boys, and I'm on Facebook and that with them, and check their scores and that. So,
and what's that crowds are these guys getting in the juniors under normal circumstances, Charlie?
Getting about 600-700 down there just now, which is pretty good. Because Clydebank have been a bit of a nomad team, going for St Rock's pitch, and other places round about there. So now they've got their own pitch that's settled, good facilities and that. So they've got a good chance of getting promotion and getting through the pyramid system. Well, now that they've got their membership back.
Here's hoping that day will come fairly soon, Charlie. We'll hear about your trip up the A9 and joining Forest Mechanics in the next wee bit. For now, thank you very much.
Cheers,
over to you, Dave.
Willie, it was a meteoric rise to fame for you. You were with Campsie Black Watch, a top club in your own area. But how did the move to Aberdeen come about? Was it the late great Bobby Calder that spotted you as like so many others?
You're right. At Campsie, I lived in a place called Denny, which is just next to Falkirk, and to get to Campsie in Lennoxton was quite a hike away, to be quite honest. And I had a friend who played for Campsie at the same time, and he drove. I didn't drive. I was only 16. And Campsie played in a strange league. I'm sure it was under 19 or something like that, or under 21s, maybe under 21s. So I was just a young boy going through there, and my pal, a boy called Marty Boyle, had said to me, go and play with Campsie, you have a wee chance of getting senior if you go there, whatever, they're a really good club. Of course, the first day I went out there, and Charlie's probably played there, it was Black Ash. Played at Campsie before, Charlie?
Yeah, I stayed just along the road for it.
In Milton?
No, well, Captain Tullip.
Oh, yeah, okay. And it was Black Ash Park. I'm thinking, holy moly, what the hell is going on here? But you settle in, and I never ever played centre half. Some people say I never ever played centre half full stop, but I never ever played as a centre half. I played it as a right back. And there was a boy from Kirkintilloch, a boy called John Malcolm, was the centre half at the time, and just a top player. And he never turned up one day. And the manager who run Campsie Black Watch forever, a guy called Jerry Marley, who's sadly no longer with us, Jerry says to me, you play centre half. And I played, and Bobby was at the game. I don't know why. And he spoke to me after the game, and I thought he was mistaken. It couldn't be me he was talking to, but he says, yeah, you did okay, son, we'll come back and see you at some point, you know. And I thought, well, that's fine, whenever that's going to be. And there was another scout called Jimmy Carswell, who was Bobby's sidekick doing the scouting. And to be fair, Jimmy Carswell was responsible for a lot of boys like Big McLeish and boys like that who get up to Aberdeen as well. So Airdrie came along and says to me, why don't you come training with us? So I trained a couple of nights with Airdrie and a couple of nights with Campsie. You say 16, 17-year-old, you're as fit as a fiddle. And I got to play a game for Airdrie reserves at the old Broomfield against Rangers reserves. And they beat us 6-0. They're a good side, to be fair, at that time. And Bobby Calder was at the game, and he came up to me after the game and he says, I thought you did really well. And again I thought, you must be speaking to the wrong guy here. A big boy called Marty scored 3 goals for Rangers that day. And I thought you did well, and I'd let you go up to Aberdeen for a trial. So that's how it came about, by sheer fluke, me playing centre half one day, and then by sheer coincidence that we could beat 6-0, and the Aberdeen scout thought I did all right. So yeah, I was asked to go up and play a trial for Aberdeen.
It's fine margins, Willie, as you'll know, between making it and maybe not making it. And you were in the right place at the right time on that day at Broomfield.
No, I totally agree. And I was 17 and a half by the time I signed for Aberdeen, and there were a lot of kids who think if they get to that age, they've not really got a chance. It's just a case of battering on and see how you do. And I up on trial with Aberdeen. I was up for 2 weeks. I'll quite happily say this. I was working in a paper mill at the time in Denny and earning probably 100 quid a week, which in 1975, 74 was a lot of money, working 3 shifts. So I went up to Aberdeen for a fortnight, took my summer holidays, trained away. Aberdeen had a few centre halves at that time. Willie Young was still there. Eddie Thompson was still there. A guy called Noel Ward. So that was a clutch of centre backs who were all very, very good players. And I spent the fortnight, and it was Jimmy Bonthrown that was the manager. And Jimmy had says to me, I really like you, but we don't need another centre half right now. So I'm going to sign you in a provisional form. I was too old to sign schoolboy forms. Go back down and keep playing with Campsie, but I need to get you fitter as well. So I trained 2 nights with Stennismuir and 2 nights with Campsie. And again, fortune, as you said, Dave, Big Willie Young was having some issues with the club. They took him off in a game. He threw his jersey in the dugout at the manager. I think it was a bit pre-planned, to be fair, because a couple of days later he had signed with, I'm sure it was Arsenal he went to before he went to Spurs, right? So he went to Arsenal, and I got a call up to sign the full-time contract.
Now, you played under several top-class managers at Aberdeen. You mentioned Jimmy Bonthrown, there was Harry McLeod, Billy McNeil, and obviously Fergie later on. They're all different characters, totally different characters, I would imagine, Willie.
Yeah, well, the quick story with Jimmy is that Jimmy had arranged, I'd played a reserve game at Ayr, and they said, just go, that was on a Saturday, and they dropped me off at Stirling train station. I went back home, got my gear, and went up to Aberdeen on the Sunday night on the train. And Jimmy picked me up at the train station and took me to my digs in Crown Street. There's 2 other boys in digs at that time. Took me up to my digs, dropped me off, and no word or anything, just dropped me off. That's your digs, son. then the following morning, Jimmy had resigned, and he hadn't told me. So, so I went into the club, and it was Teddy was there, and the guy who used older guys. I remember George Murray. George was in there as well at that time.
Yeah.
And it just moved on from there. So yeah, they needed a manager. Ali was doing very, very well at Ayr, and you know, Ali came in. The crowds at that time were pretty poor, to be fair. You know, they were going through a real bad time. Ali came in like he did with the World Cup squad. He made you think you were the best player in the world, you know, and he made you think you were going to win everything. And yeah, it was good. It was good fun working under Ali. You know, you never knew you were going to get. He got the crowds back into Pittodrie because he started playing this attacking football. Ali was the first boy that ever brought in the kick-off where the ball gets laid back to somebody to punt, and he had 5 guys on the left-hand side of the park just charging against the right back. And the fans loved it. The fans just thought this is brilliant. So the fans started coming back in. Very competitive man, and we used to train. You maybe know you'll know this. The younger guys in the call here. That red ash car park across the Pittodrie. That's where we used to train, on that red ash. In 1976, I think that got laid, and it was as deep as, it must have been about 3 or 4 inches deep, and it just kept moving. But we trained in it every single day. And Ali joined in. So as the people started to realise that we were training outdoors and people could see us, you used to get crowds coming to training right along that fence. And we got a penalty in a game one day, and he says to me, "Garner, you take the penalty, but if you miss it, you're coming back in the night to train." It was like the end of November, start of December time. Bloody stupid, you know. So anyway, I took the penalty. Big Clarkey saved it. You're in the night at 7:30. So I appeared at Pittodrie at 7:30 at night. And the only light that was on was the front door. The light in just inside the tunnel, it was on as well. No floodlights. Snow on the ground, and he says, 12-minute run, 8 laps. If you don't do it, you're doing it again. So I thought, you're a nutcase. So anyway, I started running around the track, and as I got to the diagonally far corner, and he stopped me, and he says, "Let's walk up here." We walked up, and of course I've cut the corner, but the footprints are in the snow. Start again. So away I went, round the track, and he actually jumped out of the terrace and up at that far corner in the pitch black. That's right. I thought, what a nutcase. But good times. And Ali went, he went to this Scotland job. The very first league season of the Premier League, you know, quite important for Aberdeen, because we were struggling in terms of, we were heading relegation, we're in the relegation zone. And we had to win our last game against Hibs at Pittodrie to actually stay up for definite. And Dundee and St Johnstone got relegated that year. And they weren't seen for many, many years. You know, there was a demise of those 2 clubs for many, many, many years. And you could say they've never ever been the same clubs as they were way back in the 70s, the 60s and the 70s. So Aberdeen missed that. So Ali kept us up. We won the League Cup. You might come on to that. And then took the Scotland job. So they needed a new manager, and Big Billy was the guy who came in.
And Billy McNeil, of course, was well, he was a legend, wasn't he? And a great man to look up to, I'm sure, Willie. Yeah,
absolutely. He was a centre half as well. And I think you don't forget, he took John Clark in with him as well as his assistant. You know, and John and Billy played in that Lisbon Lions team together, and, you know, just a fantastic partnership. And you could see that I'm not saying that Ali wasn't a professional, he was, but there was a different level when Billy came in. You know, Big Billy was one of these guys who walked into a room and you knew he was in the room. I'm sure some of you guys, like yourself, Dave and Martin, have been in a room and Big Billy's walked in, and you're thinking, there's an aura about this guy that just was incredible. And he changed a lot of things. You know, he signed a lot of players. You know, he signed Stevie Archibald and he signed V. Gordon. And at that point as well, you know, Hewitt and Cooper and Simpson and Black and Gunn, they were all in the system. They were all just bubbling under, just waiting to get an opportunity, you know. But obviously, we got beaten in the Scottish Cup final. Rangers beat us in the Scottish Cup final. They pipped us for the league as well. We should have won the league by a canter. We were favourites against Rangers going into a Scottish Cup final. That was unheard of because of our form. And we turned up. We didn't turn up in the final, which was really, that was one of the biggest disappointments ever. And then Big Billy got the call to go back to Celtic, and he's never ever going to turn that down. And he moved on, and then Fergie appeared.
Yeah, well, there you go. You must have a Fergie story. Everybody does. Our great friend told me one or two. The late great Neil Cooper Tatty told me one or two things about Fergie. But
Did he impersonate him? Was he impersonating him at the time?
Yeah, you must have a couple of Fergie stories you could share with us, Willie.
I think, you know, when he first came up to the club, and Neil at that time would have been a really quite a young boy as well, but when he first came up to the club, he kept comparing our players to the players he had left at St Mirren. You know, and like I say, especially the established boys like Miller and Kennedy and these boys, they didn't like that. Now, whether he was doing that deliberately or whether he wasn't doing it deliberately, you'll never know. But one of the first things, we used to get invited to a grouse day. Not the drink, but the actual shoot the grouse, you know. And you would go to it was one of the hotels at Dice, the Skeen Do, I think it was, at Dice. And we've all went up to the Skeen Do at Dice. And he had wound the players up so much that nobody liked them. Seriously, probably he was only there for a couple of months. Nobody liked him. And we were sitting at the table, and he was just a chat. He was a chat about he's this and he's that, and he's left players out, and obviously they're even more disappointed than the ones that are actually still playing and didn't like him either. And Ian Fleming and myself, can't remember who else it was, three of us had went to the toilet, and from talking about him in a sort of not a good way, we just started talking about something else when we were in the toilet. And he came out the toilet, he'd been in one of the cubicles. You know? So if we'd continued that conversation, I don't think our careers would have lasted as long as they probably did. But just such a, you know, I went back to work with him obviously in years after that. And just some of the things that he does, you know, the psychology side of things. And I don't know whether you want me to tell that story about the Hearts Cup final just now, or you want to leave that till later on.
I think you should tell it just now.
We played Hearts in the '86 Scottish Cup final. I was working as assistant, and they'd just been beaten by Dundee the week before, and they lost the league. And they got a psychologist in that week to, you know, let's forget about last week. For next week, that's the most important thing. That's the most important game. It's a Scottish Cup final, you know, and they had good side Hearts, you know, Sandy Jardine and Wee Doddy, and they were running the thing. Wee Robbo still played at that. It was playing at that time. Sandy Clark, John Cahoon, good players. Mm-hmm. So Fergie found out that they got a psychologist in. We got to Hampden first, and he had says to everybody in the team, the staff, up to the foyer, in fact, the old square Hampden bit that they used to have, the glass bit, were there before the Hearts team bus. As soon as they walk in, just pick one of them and just walk up and shake their hand and say, unlucky last week. It's like planted that last week thing right back in their head again. And if you ever see Wee Robbo, ask Wee Robbo about that, because he talks about it in terms of, we thought, well, how nice is Aberdeen guys just to sort of say that, you know. Hewitt scored in 2 minutes and the game was over. You know, we beat them 4-0, and it was a canter, to be honest. So yeah, just knowledge, but you've never ever argue about his knowledge of the game, because it was incredible, and he knew everything that was going on. He knew everything that was going on. Cooper, God rest him, would have been unhappy because he knew every night he was in Champers.
That's right.
He had contacts everywhere, you know. So yeah, the good times, and very successful times as well.
Yeah, and they were successful times. Tell us about that League Cup win, and of course the Premier League title. That was a great achievement as well, Willie.
Yeah, the League Cup, that was Ali. That was '76 again, back in '76. We actually, I'm positive we played Stirling Albion in the quarterfinals, and Stirling Albion was still at the old Anfield. And you know, as Charlie said earlier on, those original all-weather pitches, shall we call them? It was like a coating of sandpaper. That's what you were playing on a concrete surface.
Aye.
And Stirling Albion had one of them, and we drew with them at Stirling, and then we went up to Pittodrie and we drew with them, and we beat them in a third game at Dens. I'm positive about that somewhere in my mind. Anyway, we then drew Rangers in the semi-final at Hampden, and we went down. We were nowhere near favourites at all, and beat them 5-1. You know, an amazing result for the club at that time. You know, just pitched up. Jockey Scott scored 3. I think Drew scored. I think Joe scored as well. You know, you're beating Rangers 5-1 at Hampden on a Wednesday night. I think there must have been 65, 70,000 people in Hampden, and we battered them. And I get a great feeling when I say that, even when I still say that. You know, we battered them. And we played Celtic in the final at Hampden, and we lost a goal early on. Dalglish scored with a penalty. Willie will say it was never a penalty, but it was a penalty. And we beat them 2-1 in extra time. David Robb scored the winner in extra time. And again, huge crowd at the game. The big bit about that was getting on the open top bus at Garth-D and going through the city and into Pittodrie. It was just fantastic. There was so many thousands of people out welcoming us back, which was great. Time moved on, you know, 79, 80, we had a great run in the games. Big Alec McLeish was just coming through at that time, but I played 25 games that season. Big Alec played centre midfield and I played at the back with Willie. But there was always an eye. Fergie always thought that Big Alec was going to play centre half and beside Willie and Jim, or Bobby Clark, sorry, at that time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we won the league. We had a great run in. We beat Celtic at Celtic Park. I'm sure we beat Rangers at Pittodrie and at Ibrox as well. My saddest moment in that was that the last game of the season at Easter Road, as I said, I played 25 games that year, and the day before the game, Fergie says to me, "There's a reserve game at Pittodrie tomorrow, and we're short players, and I'm really sorry, but you're going to need to play." And I says, "I'd really like to went to Easter Road. I know I wouldn't even have been involved, but I've been involved throughout the season. No, you're playing." So Duncan Davidson and I had to play in the game. And the guys won the league. They beat Hibs 5-0 or 5-1, whatever it was, and I got a medal. But the guys came back up that night. We went into Mr. G's, and I just didn't feel part of it. I really felt I really disliked the man at that time. Totally respected him. Mm-hmm. You move into management, as you guys all know, you make decisions that are unpopular. Mm-hmm. I didn't like him at that particular time, but we won the title, which was fantastic.
Before we touch on your move to Celtic, Willie, you mentioned a man earlier on who was a real legend, and Teddy Scott. I mean, Teddy was Aberdeen Football Club for many, many people, and he was a lovely, lovely man. Yeah.
I think Teddy was one of the guys that he put his arm around everybody when they came into the park, regardless, and he was a go-to guy as well. And Teddy would have been the go-to, the middle guy between the manager and the management team, the manager and assistant, and the players. And the great stories about Teddy, if you're honest, if you wanted a pair of boots, and he'd have a room halfway along that corridor it was at the time, and it was Aladdin's cave, wasn't it? And nobody knew what was in it. You know, you had a pair of boots and you pitched up, and it was almost like he spun you around half a dozen times before he let you in. You kept in your hand and your head spinning. You think, I've never seen anything in that room, you know. Or the unfortunate thing was the boys near the end of the season, you know, when their contracts were coming up, they were afraid to go and ask for boots, because if they said no, they'll date you at the end of the season, then you're, you know, on your bike, aren't you? a lovely man. He had time for everybody, and a great knowledge of the game. And you know, all the managers will say that Teddy is one of the boys you just bounce things off of, and he would tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And he was in that club from, I don't know how many times he would have slept in that club, coming back from midweek games. You know, instead of going back to Ellen, he just kept in, and you come back in the morning, your training gear's all cleaned, and all they do it, and early, but all they do it. You know? Yeah, lovely man.
Lovely man he was. How did the move to Celtic come about, Willie?
I wasn't playing, and I said that I turned down a move to Barnsley. Alan Clark, who used to play with Leeds, was the manager of Barnsley, and I turned down a move to Barnsley. And it was, and you know, hindsight, it was a stupid thing to do, because I wasn't making great money at Pittodrie. I think I was on £105 a week, and that was me playing in the first team. Money wasn't big, obviously, at that time in terms of the amount that you get. It was way before agents and things like that. So the club dictated what you were getting and how long you were going to sign for. And I thought, I need to get a move out of here. Fergie phoned me one night and he says, I've got an interest from Hearts. I went, okay. And Bobby Monker was the manager at Hearts at the time. So Bobby phoned me and he says, can I meet you in Stonehaven? And I went, absolutely. So I went and I met him in Stonehaven and we had a chat, and the wages weren't that much more. I was going to get a game in the first team. I says, give me a night to go and think about it, and I'll give you a call in the morning. And it's the best thing I ever did, just to reflect on what everything was, instead of just jumping in. And Fergie phoned me later on that night. He said, how'd you get on? I said, well, I'm having a think about it. And he says, well, have a think about this as well. John Clark's been on the phone and he wants you to sign for Celtic. And I thought, oh, okay. That'll be happening then. Even if, regardless of the wages they offered me, that was going to happen, wasn't it? You know. So I had an old Volkswagen Beetle, and I went and hired a car, a half decent car, to drive into Celtic Park. And to be fair, they doubled my wages, which was important, obviously. And yeah, signed for Celtic.
Brilliant. Well, we'll look further into that very, very shortly. For the moment, thank you very much, Willie.
Pleasure.
Willie, it was so nice of you to reflect on Billy McNeil. I was so fortunate to make Billy's acquaintance in a dinner circuit, and it was, well, I'm sure it wasn't a Billy, it was probably Liz that sent the Christmas card every year, and he was just a wonderful, down-to-earth guy, and always so pleased to see you, and I certainly felt privileged to have counted him as a friend in his later years, and it was nice to hear you say those things. I did a quick check with that our colleague Wiki, and she's telling me you did indeed play Stirling Albion in the quarter-finals, and it was all square after 2 legs, and it went to a third replay, as did one of the other quarter-finals. They finished all square as well and went to a replay, and it was Rangers versus Clydebank. There you go. Small world.
That same season, was it?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Eric, you've been very patient. Thank you.
That was good to hear the stories there.
Eric, am I right in saying you'd be a son of the Mearns? Would that be right?
Yes. That's where I was born and bred. Yeah.
And I'm going to go after. I've got a leading question here. Have you always been have you always had height on your side, or were you a late developer?
No, I would have been quite a small kid. I would have been one of the small ones.
The reason why I ask, I've got a daughter that's in excess of 6 feet, and she was always tall, and she hates looking back at her school photos. She actually looks like a young teacher. So were you playing? You were playing schools football, I take it, and juvenile football with Stonehaven. Was that in the Aberdeen setup?
Yeah, in Aberdeen sub-leagues. Yeah. I think I was playing in a little local primary school. I was playing a tournament up in Stonehaven at the time, and me and my friend Ross were scouted there just to go along and join Stonehaven. So I stayed there my whole juvenile football, 5-6 years or something like that. Okay. So no, it was good. Never a great team. Was there coaches there that you can reflect back on and say that they pointed in the right direction, or it was just a collection? Well, I do my son's football now, and I like to think myself I know a bit about football, but looking back on some of the coaches I had growing up, especially the first ones, I think they were just dads helping out and doing the best they could. But there was a couple tried to pass on their knowledge, but when I was young, I had quite a chip on my shoulder anyway, so there was a lot of time I wouldn't take on what they were saying. Yeah, I think part of the problem in modern day terms is some of these dads actually go out and get formal qualifications. Willie, you'll probably echo this. They go out and get formal qualifications, and then suddenly they feel that they're the experts in the game. And I've seen it through the years. You know, refereeing junior clubs, etc. And you've seen management teams coming in. You think, where have these guys come from? Because you've seen them at some level or whatever. Now I can't be too critical because I was a hopeless football player, and it's
but the vast majority of coaches, successful or not, have come from a playing background.
Yeah.
And I think probably fortunately, most of the time, this interest you get from dad's coaching wanes once son gets passes his driving test, starts drinking, and loses an interest in football, and so does his father. But it can be arguably a real hindrance to a player's career. In fact, I can actually remember John Gardner. For Martin signed a youngster on a Saturday. They thought it'd be a good idea. We'll get him in before the game to sign him, and he was being told straight away he was getting farmed out, and the father wasn't happy with this. He's saying, "Oh, I think you're missing a trick here. You should be telling me what the details are for next Saturday, so he's travelling with the first team. You shouldn't be farming my son out." And John says to me, "Martin, have you got his contract there a minute?" I goes, "Aye, it's here. Look, John." He says, "Give it here." He goes, "See you later." And that was it. He says, "I was wanting to sign the son. I wasn't wanting to sign the father as well." So
yeah, there's so many. You do see so many pushy parents, and I've played with guys growing up as well. Their dad's always there in the coach's ear and stuff like that. And it was never something that my dad. He was always working. Grew up in a farm, so he was always working. So it was my mum that took me to the football. Bless her, but she doesn't know much about football, so she just had to let me get on with it, to be fair.
Well, interestingly, the fact that you're doing obviously some coaching yourself now, do you sit back and let them get on with it, or do you,
I would like to. I'd try. They're still quite young yet. Some of the kids. My son's 9, just turning 9. 8, sorry, he's just turned 8, and 8-year-old. Some of them do take in the ones that are really into football. You can see them. You can tell them little things, and they'll take it on. And then some of them still there just to tear around, kick the ball as hard as they can, and they'll maybe be another few years until they realise their potential, I think.
And do you feel it's important for them to make their own mistakes, and so they can learn from mistakes as well? You can't just do it through a guidebook, as it were.
Yeah, and to be fair, I've made plenty of mistakes in my days playing football, and I never really. My dad was never really into that football that much at all, so I never had someone tell me after the game what I did wrong, what I did right, or something like that. I just had to make my own way. So I do feel I've got plenty of knowledge that I would like to pass on to young players coming through to try not to make mistakes I did.
Brilliant. So you obviously the next stage of the ladder is to step up to, and I'm right in saying that Lothermuir are a fairly local team to where you were brought up?
They were. I used to bike to training there actually when I was 16-year-old. I left the boys' club and went into men's football. Probably the best thing I needed, because I was a bit of a wido, I would say, at 16 years old, and I was really being taken down a peg or two. So the men's football really did that to me. That 2 seasons there was really good, just to see the difference between men and boys football, it was good, a good leveler for me. And
again, that would have been in the Aberdeen amateur ranks at that time. Was it expanded?
Yes,
it had expanded then. I remember as a youngster growing up and reading the Green Final, and there'd be all these amateur teams, and I didn't know where half the places were. But I did actually referee Lothermuir towards the end of my career. And it's committed football, is it? It's they're certainly, they play for the cause.
And it's guys, and they're all turning up from work and stuff. I bet they're doing it for free as well, and they're just doing it for the love of the game. They're using their own petrol money, and they're buying strips, they're putting money into training gear and stuff themselves. It's just for the love of the game. It's obviously not the same level, but they've got great passion at that level as well. It's good to see. And at that time I joined, I was 16 years old, and I think that's what's going out of the game now as well. There's just no experience. When you look around amateurs, juniors, they seem like under 21 teams. They're just all young guys going about. There's not the experienced boys that once were maybe 10, 15 years ago, especially that Lothermuir team. Most of the guys would have been the other side of 25, 30-year-old. They're all been proper experienced players, but now if you go down the local parks and watch amateur teams, it's just all young kids that's playing. And even the juniors, I've taken a few junior games, and young guys, 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, and then the age just seems to drop off, and they've just disappeared, the guys.
Yep,
I don't know if it's a commitment thing, or I just don't know.
There was for a long time, there was a sort of serious flow of guys coming back down the way as there was going up. Certainly Dave and I, our hometown team, a population I think of something like 1,200, 1,300 people. and it withheld an amateur team, a junior team, and a Highland League team at one time, and they all predominantly, maybe the senior team, not quite so much, but most of the teams, it was all local players. And you tend to find that, people, once they had their maybe 2 or 3 seasons with the Highland League club, and then they come back down through the ranks and played out their careers at amateur level or whatever. And we were also talking about in a previous show, or a number of previous shows, about the dilemma that in the modern game, youngsters are not encouraged, or they're not allowed to play for their schools and play for their main club in the afternoon, etc. Whereas, again, as a youngster, my mates played for the school in the morning, and some of them played Highland League at that time, played Highland League in the afternoon, and that just doesn't happen now.
No, it doesn't seem to at all. No. And the amount, I know football would still be the main sport around my areas anyway, and I'd imagine right up the north as well. Football would be the main sport. There's just not the same amount of players playing, I don't think. So you've not got the same choices, so probably it's competitive to get games and stuff like that. So I think the numbers are tailing off as well. So
you've gone from boy to man. You're playing along with a man's team. Any silverware during the time at Leathermuir?
No, not Leathermuir. No, we're kind of middle of the table. Premier League amateur team.
So the next question I'm going to ask then is
trophy the year I left.
The next question I'm going to ask is Scottish Cup trips. Scottish Cup trips.
That's what they lived for. Actually, the amateur teams. Your Scottish Cup days are way down. I think we're way down past in Ayrshire one time, and they had this guy, and I think he went on to play Lowland League or maybe the low leagues, and he would be a young guy as well, a centre forward, and I had to pick him up as a centre half, and we did really well down there. We drew, say, 2-2, so I had to take them back. We had a great day on the way back up in the bus, and I remember going and turning up, and everyone just thought we were going to beat this team for Ayrshire, but I think they beat us about 5 or 6-0 when they come up to Leathermuir, and it was just a different game altogether. But I remember every year you used to try and get 2-3 away days in the Scottish Cup. That would make your season just for the carry on after the game.
Yeah, I know. Quite often for youngsters, coming up through the ranks, a trip to the Scottish Cup with their junior side of the amateur time, it's maybe the first time they've been away from home with a group of blokes, etc. It's been quite an experience for them. At that time, of course, maybe not quite. I think amateur teams are a wee bit more professional in their approach today. I think they wait till they come on the bus on the way home before they have a drink. But it would have been a wonderful sort of coming of age experience for a lot of youngsters. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. And again, it's with the experience of the boys, because we're all older boys. There was nobody my age in that team at that time, so you were having a beer with guys you would never really be speaking to normally. So it was good fun, and just a great experience.
Eric, we're going to come back to your next step up through the junior ranks, but for now, thank you very much. Back to you, Dave.
No worries.
In 1995, you come up north, you signed for Forest Mechanics, and that's the first 13-year period of your career at Mossett Park. A huge move for you signing for Forest Mechanics, and it's one that's left an impression on you, Charlie, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. My parents had moved up to Forest about a year before I had moved up. I was actually doing pre-season with Ayr United, and Simon Stainrod had offered me a contract. And I said, look, I'm going to go up to see my parents for a fortnight and see how they're getting on and that. So I come up here and I trained with Forest Thistle. And then I went back down the road and I got a phone call saying that Forest wanted to sign me. So I come up and I spoke to George Kivy. And then I spoke to Simon Stainrod again. And Ayr United were only offering me part-time, no wages, no training, travelling expenses. And I said, a better move for me is back up to Forest and try and sort my career out up there. So I signed, and the rest history.
With George Cowie on the show about 3-4 weeks ago from his home in Australia. Top man, George, a lovely man, and he knows the game.
Yeah, George was a really, really good coach. Great boy off the pitch as well. I see him a few times at Christmas through at Fochabers. Seen the reindeers and that with the kids. I spoke to him a few times. He's been at a game as well. Still the same boy. No change. But he's a really, really good lad.
And off the field at Mossett Park, Charlie, was the likes of Cherry Fraser and Bruce Hay, were they involved at that time?
Yeah, Cherry and Bruce. Bruce was the chairman. Cherry was the secretary. There was a lot of the committee boys and that, but it was the players. You know, the first time I walked into the dressing room, you see Brian Minty. It's just his clothes and his glasses and pushing them up like that. Stephen Mackay, he was there. Kev Walker, he was in the toilets, throwing up his ring, coughing because he'd smoked that many fags, I think, before the game. But it was a strange feeling for me moving and going in there the first time. But once I got in, the boys were great, settled in, no problem.
It was a very successful spell, Charlie. You landed up winning 3 League Cups, a North Cup and an Inverness Cup in those first years, and that must have been quite a thrill, especially the Highland League Cup. That was a big one at the end of the season.
Yeah, but that time we weren't really sort of dominant in the league. We're middle of the league team, but our cup runs were very successful. The Scottish Cup as well. You know, we got a good run in that. The League Cups and the North of Scotland ones, that's what we were quite dominant in.
And Forest have always had quite a tight dressing room. I mean, the guys play together. They play together in more ways than one. It's always a good experience. You're always a good bunch of guys at Forest. Always have been.
Yeah. The nights out and after games, didn't matter whether it was a cup final or just a Saturday game. There was always there. Me and Brian, Kevin, there until the end of the night in the social club. We just stayed there, just drank, spoke to the supporters and that, and had a great laugh with them.
You were always a very skillful player, Charlie, but you had a good degree of pace as well. And that pace was important in Highland League football.
Yeah, because I could get away from Eric. Yeah.
I think you did hear that. Eric's frozen.
Yeah. Pause.
Pause, Eric.
Everyone's frozen in mine.
How tough opponent was Eric Watson?
I heard that. I definitely heard that.
You heard that one. How tough an opponent was Eric Watson, Charlie?
It was, yeah, very, very difficult. You always knew Eric was there anyway. But
tell us about some of your teammates at Forest Mechanics and the characters you played with.
Brian Minty's always going to be the standout, the comedian. Great player, great finisher, you know, great boy to have in the dressing room. Then you get the likes of Colin Mitchell, really, really skillful player. He's had a great career. You know, Gordon Conley as well. The knowledge you learn off of these players is just, you know, second to none. So it's been great learning for them. Sammy Leons, you know, still see Sammy walking about Forest, still the same boy, still 6'7" both ways, but gentleman, you know. So we've had a few.
Big Sammy was a character, wasn't he? Or Alex, as we had to call him in later years, Alex Leons. Of course, Big Sammy was part of that Elgin City team, the league taken away from him, if I remember rightly, that Friday night.
Did it get taken away from him, Dave? I'm not too sure.
You know what I mean?
I'm from Forest, mate. You know. I'm not getting brought into that one. I've got my own opinion of that with what the boys tell me. So
I think it's fair to say Elgin City fans didn't watch the show anyway, Dave.
But he's a nice big guy, Big Sammy, wasn't he? A nice big man. He was in the RAF, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's RAF. Yeah. There's a funny story about Sammy. My son come home one time and he said he's got a new girlfriend. And it's a 16-year-old, and I thought, yeah, just be careful. You know, I don't want her father coming to the door saying, "Oh, your son's got my daughter pregnant." So then he introduced us to her, Big Sammy Leon's his daughter, and I said, "No, you better not be bringing her father to the."
On that note, Charlie, we'll park the bus there. We'll be back with you very shortly.
Cheers, Dave. Willie, your time at Celtic ends, and you've had a couple of loan spells, including some time south of the border with Rochdale, and then suddenly you come back to Scotland, somewhat surprisingly maybe, player manager with Alloa.
Yeah, I was and still am very friendly with Alec Totten, and Alec was the manager at Alloa at the time, another Denny boy. And I wasn't getting a game, and I went down to Rochdale and I played for a month, and I was like a basketball game, you know. It was like the second division in England at the time. And the centre forwards are 6'6", and the centre halves are 6'6", and he just banged the ball forward. And to be fair, as a centre back, it's good fun playing against these type of boys. So it's just a fight. And then they wanted me to sign. I didn't fancy Rochdale, to be honest, at that time. They've still got their ground, Sportland, but I didn't fancy Rochdale at the time because you had to take your own gear home to wash, and I was staying above a pub in Diggs, so I was let off with that because I never had a facility to do that. So anyway, I asked for a huge sign-on fee, and they said, "Can't afford it?" And I thought, thank God. Back up to Celtic, and again, never going to get a game. My start there wasn't great. I had a couple of G's in my debut, which didn't help. So Alec Totten phoned me and he says, "Why don't you come out and play with us for a season?" And Alloa were in the first division at the time. Would be the championship now. And I went, okay. So I went out and played for a month. I was only 27 at that time. And Alex says to me, I'm leaving, I'm going to Falkirk. And I thought he was going to ask me to go to Falkirk with him. And he said, "And I've put your name forward to be the manager here." I thought, I'm only 27-year-old. I just turned 27. He says, "Well, they're really keen. The board are really keen to get you in, get somebody experienced to come in and work with you, keep playing." I think that was the bit. It was just wanting me to keep playing. So I phoned Fergie and I says, "What do you think?" He says, "Take it." He says, "Take the job." And I thought, I'm 27. I could go and play with Hibs or Motherwell or something like that. He says, "No, take the job." So I took it and I really, really enjoyed it. You know, I was there for, I can't remember how long I was there, maybe 18 months or something. Hearts were in the first division at that time. Wharton were in the first division at that time. It was a really, really good league. And I went in at the Christmas time. We were sitting fourth in the league at the time, and I said to the board, I need some money just to strengthen, just to get a wee push, because I think we weren't that far away. And to a man, they says, "We're not giving you any money." He says, "We cannot afford to go up to the Premier League. The ground update would just cost an absolute fortune, so we couldn't afford it." So I thought, yeah, batting your head against a brick wall here, you're trying your best. And one of the funny stories was that there's a boy, Stuart Monroe, played with Rangers, a left back, and Stuart must have played, I don't know, 400 games for Rangers. When I went to Alloa, he was a left winger. And you know that old saying, couldn't cross the road. So that was Stuart. Brilliant at getting there, but you're thinking, waiting and it coming in, you're thinking, come on, Stuart. So it was my assistant boy called Marty Boyle. Marty says to me, "Why don't we try him at left back?" So put him to left back, and just outstanding. And we played Hamilton at the old Hamilton Douglas Park, in a Scottish Cup tie midweek. And they beat us 1-0. They beat us 1-0 after extra time. And I'm talking to the players after the game, once I got my back, which was always a problem being the player manager in it. You're down to throttle somebody or just pin them up against the wall. Breathing at my backside at that point. You think, just calm down. And the door burst open and Jock Wallace walked into the dressing room. And I said, "What do you want in here?" And he says, "I want to sign that boy there, Monroe." So I ushered him out the dressing room. I was about fighting him. I wouldn't have been a fight. Big Jock would have killed me. But anyway, I get him out in the changing room. And Rangers signed Stuart, you know. And as I said, Alloa didn't put a clause in his contract, which I told him to do, about any signing, moving on fees and playing a number of games and get some more money. So yes, I really enjoyed it. And then I got a phone call, and Fergie phoned me, says, I want you to come back. I was my assistant manager, and I thought, okay. I'll come up and talk to you. Went up and talked to him. Archie had taken the job at Dundee at that point. Archie had been his assistant. Obviously, it was just after they won the Cup Winners' Cup and the Super Cup. Then they went to Dundee. Archie try the manager thing for himself. He'd already been a manager at Forth. I think he was player manager at Forth a few years. And he thought I might get back into that. So I got asked if I wanted to be an assistant, and I says absolutely. Detailed what the role was, working with him, working with the first team. And to be fair, the majority of the players that were in the first team were there when I left a few years before, you know. So from knowing them as friends and teammates, I then had to make that adjustment to be on the management team. And I thought I did that quite well. Fergie, that was one of the reasons he says I wasn't staying in the job. I disagreed with him at that point, because I departed from being a friend. But I think I enjoyed the whole episode of working with him. You know, we were at a game every night of the week except a Friday. It didn't matter where the game was, whether it was in Britain or whether it was in Europe. It was like we're just at games watching players. And the ones in Britain where you're travelling to Blackpool or Manchester or in Leeds or wherever else in England or anywhere in Scotland, he'd come round and pick me up at the house. He had this huge Mercedes, a club car, and he'd come round and pick me up at the house. And by the time I got in the car, he was in the passenger seat and I had to drive. He would sleep to 7 at the most. And then it was just question. What would you do here? What do you think about him? How do you think he is? You know, our own team, opposition players, what do we need? You know, that type of thing. So it was just an absolute education of working with someone who was just wired in, and football was just 9.99% of what he thought about for 24 hours a day.
Just a fantastic addition to have in your CV, I would say. You know, an unbelievable. And the cynic in me thinks, well, was the advice for you to take a position up at Alloa, Fergie's way I said, well, this will give you a wee bit of experience before I give you the shout to come up the road?
Yeah, well, it said to me when I left, when I went to Celtic, and it says to me, I didn't play you that much laterally. He said, but I've got to thank you for coming back, because at that time, Paul Wright and Stevie Gray, Joe Miller, these were all young boys. Big Brian Gunn would join him in this as well. Tatty would do it as well. I used to take a group of them out in the afternoon, and it wasn't at that time. You know, you get players now who are desperate to do, not desperate, they want to do their coaching badges. You know, Big Eric's doing stuff like that. You want to get your coaching badges because you want to stay in the game longer, right? That wasn't my motive at that time. I didn't think about that. I was just like, I need to do something in the afternoon here. And just used to take the young boys to either Seaton Park or the barracks or whatever. It was a bit of dry grass where you could stick some goals up and go and do other stuff with them. You know, Eric as well, Eric Black. And he says, I really liked you for doing that. He says, I just thought that was off your own back that you did that as well. And you could see, he says, I could see there was an eye for the coaching side of things. So, yeah, and it had his moments. You know, Fergie had his moments.
You obviously had the right work ethic, Willie, and I think that goes a lot. I think that if you're prepared to go that extra yard, I'm sure it gets noted. And that's kind of advice I would pass on to any youngster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Watching the show, if there is any youngsters watching the show,
there's a great story where Jimmy Carswell, who I'd spoke about earlier on, was still the scout. Bobby had sadly passed away, and Jimmy Carswell phoned me and he says, "There's a young boy playing at Falkirk, in Irvine. He's going to get a look at him." Simon Dunty was Brockville. Simon Dunty Falkirk and watched Big Brian. I never told Fergie I was going. I went down and watched him. And I thought, he's all right. You know, he's a big, young boy, very, very quick, decent in the air. Wasn't the most aggressive person at that time. So I went down and watched him. And I phoned Jimmy. I says, I'm coming down to watch him again. Come with me. And just talk me through what you see, to see if it's different from what I see. And we sat and we watched him again. And I says to Fergie, the young boy at Falkirk, I want you to come and watch. Yeah, let's go down. They're playing Clyde at the old Brockville. And We're sitting in the director's box, the game started, and the weather was the most atrocious night you've ever seen. The rain was horizontal, and it was blowing that hard into the stand that everybody had to move back to the back of the stand to get out of the way. So the guy called Billy Lamont was the Falkirk manager at the time. And so we're in his office after the game and we're chatting away. And the Billy Lamont played with Fergie at Falkirk. So they were ex-teammates. So there was a bit of abuse thrown about. Fun, a bit of banter. And Lamont was wanting 60 grand and Fergie was wanting to pay 35 grand. At this point, Big Brian's still working with the TSB Bank in Falkirk and playing part-time. So they were arguing for this money, and there's a wee knock at the door, and most of these will know Big Brian. Big Brian's just gentle big boy, eh? Just a wee light chap at the door. I says, that'll be him. So I got him, opened the door, I says, come in. So he sat in my seat next to Fergie. I sat in the seat that was next to it, obviously. And Fergie switched his attention away from Billy Lamont and faced Big Brian and says to him, how did you find out tonight, son? And he says, oh, I thought I did okay. He says, in the weather conditions. Now, bearing in mind they're haggling over a price here. Brian says, I thought I did okay, but in these kind of nights, the wind and the rain and the floodlights affect my contact lenses. I says, come on, you now, I'll go for a walk, Brian. And he went out and he says, did I say something wrong there? I says, no, I think you've been an Aberdeen player in the morning, to be quite honest, you know. So it was, yeah, and the big fella came up to Aberdeen, obviously did very, very well.
Indeed, absolutely. And then in '86, maybe somewhat surprisingly, you make a trip across the city to Allen Park.
Yeah.
Did you have offers to go elsewhere?
What had happened was, obviously, age was in '86, 31.
I would say, Willie, massive story at the time. I remember, massive story at the time. It was a real coup, despite the fact that you were maybe the wrong side of 30. But it was a massive story in Highland League circles at that time.
It was the first season at Coven in the Highland League. And Tommy Cummins was the manager, and I was pally with Alan McRae and Gordon Hutchin just through the whole Aberdeen thing. That both them were at, if Cove weren't playing, then they were at the Aberdeen games abroad as well. And Gordon phoned me and he says, "Would you come to Cove?" And I went, "It's not really the move I was looking for, but let's have a chat." And you know, just a couple of weeks before that, that was just after Jockstein had died. Fergie had took the World Cup team to Mexico, the Scotland team in Mexico. And in that period, it says to me, make sure that the pre-season programme is all up, make sure that we're booked to go, we're going to to Germany, make sure you've got a plan for every day for the pre-season, that's got to be in place. Get Hewitt in a new contract, and there was another couple of things I had to do. So I did all that, and his first day back from Mexico, he hauled me in and he says, "I've got a job for you. I'm taking Archie back as my co-manager at that time." Whiz that was, but I'm taking Archie back as my co-manager, and there isn't a role for you. And I say, "So what do I need to do?" He says, "Well, you're out of a job." And I thought, okay. So from being the assistant manager, I now had to go and sign in the brew the following morning, and I needed a job. And there was no jobs forthcoming in the next 3 or 4 days. So as I say, Gordon phoned me and he says, "Why don't you come to Cove?" He says, "We'll create a role for you as a commercial manager." And Gordon and Alan had offices in just off of Union Street, top end of Union Street, just off of Rose Street. And you can work out of there, and we'll give you a car and we'll give you a wage and come and play at Cove. And I thought, why not? And to see if something else comes up. And I told them that, to be fair, I was totally honest with them. And I met with Tommy Cummins, and I assured Tommy Cummins that wasn't after his job, you know, but that wasn't something I wanted to do. So I played, and I've sold lottery tickets, and I arranged some dinners and whatever else to try and bring money into the club. Sold all the boards that were round about the park as well. So it got me out of that comfort zone of, you know, it's not about what you know, it's all about who you know now in a different world of business, which that's where I am now. Yeah, so it was, I always said that Fergie went to Man United and I went to the TSB Bank, because that's where I started working after that.
And then after a season, you stepped down into the junior ranks with Roseland Sport. Now, I don't know much about Roseland because it's a team that has my refereeing career in the juniors was based up north, and maybe only saw Roslyn Sport once or twice. So first of all, where did they play out of?
Dice. Where Dice Juniors play now.
Okay.
That's where we played, and it was so funny. There was a bunch of guys that created this team called Roslyn Sports, and Harper and I were the co-managers. It was brilliant. It was such fun for about 6 or 7 months. You know, everybody that you went to ask to play for you wanted to play for you. No need any. Brian Meldrum was the guy who set it up, and it was like, we don't want to sign on fee. We just want to come and play. No, probably not so much for me, but I want to play for wee Joe, you know. And it was just so much. It was just an absolute hoot at a time that we had. But actually, a really decent side.
I think Joe had a similar experience when he sold insurance. Did he know? He just turned up, showed the way to sign, and then he sat and spoke football all night.
Absolutely. I went to. I'm not naming names here, right? But we were after a player who played with a team in Aberdeen, right? And the manager of the team that he played for was in the jail at Craig Inches, right? And still run the team from the jail. And we wanted to sign this guy. So there was a guy called Brian Glennie, who was a prison officer at the time. And he was also Fergie's gardener, right? Part-time. And Brian used to come into Pittodrie, and for being Fergie's gardener, he used to get in about the players, and he'd come in and do a wee bit of training around the track and use the multi-gym and stuff like that. So I phoned Brian, I says, I'm needing a favour, mate. I said, I need to get into Craig Inches to speak to this guy. Can I get a pass? You know, I'm thinking, what am I doing here? So I turned up one Tuesday night at Craig Inches with my pass, you know, in through these security gates. Craig Inches at that time was pretty tough boys that were in there, obviously. I walked into this huge hall, right? And trust me, anybody that's watching this, I've never been in a prison before, and I've never been in a prison since. And this huge hall, and this guy I was going in to see was away at the far end, and he shouted as loud for the far end, "Willie Garner, I know why you're here." You know, the whole place just stopped and looked. God. So we're sitting, and if it's like me talking to you guys now, and there was just this little wooden partition in between the two of us, there was like a couple of school desks and a little wooden partition between the two of us. I said, "You know why I'm here?" He went, "Yes." And he said, "I can tell you now, it was a really good move you coming in and speaking to me before you made that sign-in, and I give you my blessing." And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
There you go. There you go. So that seems to be Joe. Cheers, pal. You know, obviously taking seniority in that decision as to who was saying it. But it was great. And to be fair, I know the guy. I know both the guys who I'm talking about, and they're really both good guys. The guy that came was a great servant, for a great player for the club. But they vanished as quick as they arrived. You know, they just went off the scene and turned themselves into Dice Juniors.
Yeah. And Dice Juniors have just recently joined the Aberdeenshire FA. And
okay.
will be participating in the Aberdeenshire League and the Aberdeenshire Cup, Aberdeenshire Shield, once it obviously gets back on the road again. So they're
Is that affiliated with the Highland League?
Well, the Aberdeenshire FA Highland League, yes.
Right, okay. Very good.
Very, very ambitious. In fact, Norman Mackay was one of our first guests on one of our earlier shows.
Okay.
And he's a real character as well.
Yeah.
And there you go. I never knew he'd been banged up inside. a joke. Shout out to Norman. You then find yourself back in the Highland League, but this time with Keith at Kynnock Park.
Yeah.
How did that come? Who did you replace?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm trying to think time scale wise, it would have been Dave, 1986, 86.
I was thinking maybe we Jimmy Wilson, but maybe
I don't know if it was Jimmy or no. I'm not really sure.
89, round about then, yeah, might have been.
Was Hammy there?
Yes, he was
Hammy
indeed.
was there too.
Hammy and Natty Porter.
I don't think it was Natty. I know I'm really pally with Natty. He worked in the bank with me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got a call to go up and speak to Keith, and before my Devon Vale debacle.
No.
I went and spoke to Keith, and again, someone who's no longer with us, Big Sandy Stables, and Sandy says to me, come in and be the player manager again, back to playing again, which was great, you know. And I thought, it's a bit of a journey for Aberdeen to Keith 2 nights a week. But at that time, 99% of the players lived in Aberdeen. So it was easy. It was easy to do it, you know. I didn't know the players. I knew, you know, obviously I was at Cove, but I knew very little about the rest of the players and the rest of the teams. That wasn't my job. My job was just to go and play. So, but the right good side, but I needed to take someone with me. So I took Ian Esselman in with me. You'll know Ian. Who knew the players. He knew the junior. He knew where to go and get players, which is important. He knew the players that were there as well, because they've all come through the Aberdeen ranks. You know, Ian Mackay and Andy Fettis and Neil Cowie and Thainer and all these boys, really, really good. But Ian Matheson, good players, wee Bremner. And so a good side, yeah. And obviously being the manager, I got to play. It's my ball, so I'm playing here, you know. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Keith, because we trained nights in Aberdeen.
Well, I maybe misheard you to start. Did you say you've got a Devonville story for us?
Yeah, I went to, I can't know if it was before Keith or after Keith, but I got a phone call. What's his name? Was it Billy Anderson? So Billy phoned me and he says, would you be the manager at Devonville? And I went, I'm not sure how far Banff is away from Aberdeen, but let me try it and I'll come up. So come up and speak to us. I went, okay. So I drove one night during the week from Aberdeen to Banff. And, you know, as I'm driving up here, I'm thinking, there's no danger I'm taking this job. It's far too far away, twice a week, you know, sometimes 3 times a week. So anyway, again, and there's a committee of quite a few. Stuart McPherson was on the committee at that time. And I've met Stuart a few times since. And he chatted away, and, you know, and every one of the committee had to have a question. How would you answer this? How would you answer this? And you just tell them what they want to hear, innit? And then I'll get his promotion. I'll win the league for you, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so what do you think? And I says, listen, no, I'll do. Give me a time. Give me overnight. I'll drive back down the road and I'll have a think about it. And I'll let you know in the morning. So drove back down the road, again, thinking, no danger am I taking this job. It's far too far away. The P&G the following morning, I was the manager. Right? So I phoned Billy Anderson. I says, what are you playing at? He says, you said you take the job. I says, no, I never. I said I'm going away for a night to think about it. So they had to go in and issue an apology because I took the job. So, but I think if you get in that Wikipedia, I think I'm the manager at Devonville.
There you go.
So probably the shortest ever management job in any time, you know.
We talked about, well, through Dice Juniors there, we talked about Aberdeenshire League. I recall an Aberdeenshire Cup game at Huntly when you were playing. It was a Aberdeenshire Cup semi-final. And Dave, you might be able to enlighten us to who the players were, but there was an incident in the game where 2 Huntly defenders, 2 Huntly players, exchanged blows.
That's
Do you remember this? They exchanged
I remember that.
and finished early. And all you did after just for the remainder of the game, or for the next half hour, you just ran play across. You played across the park for the next 20 minutes, wore them down, and then it's popped up three goals and popped them out the cup like that. Dave,
was Jono the manager at that time?
He might have been, you know.
I think he might have been.
Dave, can you recall that? Do you know who it would have been?
Was it Willie Lawson, was it?
Well,
It might well have been.
I'm thinking a Polish name as well.
Oh, Krakowski didn't play there, did he? Did Krakowski play with Huntley?
Krakowski was at Huntly, I think, as well as Peterhead. I think he was.
I may want to take your Dave's head scratcher, but if there's anybody watching this, would like to send us a tweet and tell us who are the 2 Huntly players. And Martin Stewart, if anybody, he's probably got the best chance of getting this question right for once. 24 shows, never getting any answers right. So if he can enlighten us to as who were the 2 Huntly players that basically got them knocked out of the cup after having a slight disagreement. I also remember it's Bill McCry was the referee, and I was just a young lad. I had never seen anything apart from David Harvey, you know, with a right hook for Leeds. A couple of years before that, it's the only time I'd ever seen a player hitting a teammate. So it was interesting stuff. But yeah, it's exactly.
You want to come in the dressing room now and again.
So your stint at Keith is over, and you go back to the juniors, but it was only for a temporary spell because then technically you headed south the border with Berwick Rangers.
Yeah, I moved down to Edinburgh to live, and my friends, two pals at my time, Jackie McNamara, I senior, and Ralph Callaghan. I was just golfing with Ralph today. They were the management team down at Berwick. So living in Edinburgh, and it was a similar thing with Berwick. There was nobody for Berwick to play with the Berwick Rangers. They were just, everybody was based in Edinburgh. So the training was easy. We used to walk about, train wherever we could. They weren't a big money club, but they were the best social event I've ever been to in my life. Just, the guys were saying, you know, travelling back in a team bus for Stranraer and Arbroath and all these places. Just great fun, great fun. And I think I was maybe about 36 when I played down there. So I think one of my last ever games was we played Dundee United. Berwick actually got thrown out their ground. They didn't own the ground. It was a guy who had the Speedway. And Berwick got thrown out the ground because they weren't paying, they had no money. They weren't paying any rates or anything like that. So the guy locked the door, so the physio boy had to actually break into the park and get all the training gear out and get all the kit out and everything else. And we were hobos for, you know, I think we played our last 6 or 7 games away from home because we couldn't get into the ground. So, and one of the games was against Dundee United in a League Cup tie at Tannadice, and that was when it was Gough and Hegarty and Neri and Burrock and top side. And Duncan Ferguson had just come into the team at that particular time. And firstly, Berwick played in the same colours as Dundee United, and we never had an away strip, so we had to wear the Dundee United strip that night. That's how poppers we were. But Jackie, I remember Jackie saying to me, he says, young boy Ferguson's up front, big man. He says, he's a big boy. He says, but you'll deal with him. You've been in the game for a long time. I couldn't get near him. I couldn't get near him, honestly. He scored 3 goals that night, and he could have scored about 23. And I thought at that point, yeah, time for the big girl to come out and just batter them into the wall, you know. At that level, anyway.
Was Dennis McCleary secretary at Berwick at that time?
Yes, yeah.
What a servant that man has been to the club.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Through thick and thin, you know, and they're struggling now, aren't they? They're in the Lowland League now.
Absolutely, I gave. It's a wee bit sad, really, because I gave Dennis a call. I think it was probably just before Christmas this year, just to see how Christmas last year, should I say, just to see how things were going. And he was saying we were the first fellow Scottish League club to get in touch since it went down to the Lowland League. And I'm thinking, really? Oh goodness, how quickly you can be forgotten, because you know, regardless of, you know, performances on the field or whatever, you know, good people, or mostly good people behind the scenes. Yeah. I think it was a bit of a tragedy what happened at Berwick, in respect that I understand that their board, after being relegated, gave their shareholders and their fans a positive return, because they'd made for the first time ever they'd made, you know, a 5-figure profit for their season. And that ultimately cost the board their job, because the fans would rather have seen them lose money and stay up than make money and go down. And it's going to be a long, hard struggle for them to get back up. I know Eric's smiling there. Eric's having a wee smile to himself there, because obviously he was part of that infamous day at Berwick. But nevertheless, it's, you know, there has to be a loser. There has to be a loser.
A great day, but you never want to see a club of that stature to disappear altogether.
Because I would probably, I'm pretty sure I'm accurate here in saying that if teams drop down into the lower division of the Lowland League, it's going to be really difficult for them to come back up through the pyramid system, because there are a lot of big clubs and a lot of well-financed clubs. And I know, if my team was dropping out of the Scottish League, I'd be wanting to go into the Highland League if possible, because no disrespect to Highland League teams, you have a reasonable chance of you know, making your way back up, providing you've got everything right on and off the park, obviously. But the Lowland League fears me in respect that there are bigger clubs at the lowest level of the Lowland League pyramid than there are at the highest level, if that makes sense. And over the next 2 or 3 years, they're going to rise to the top and be a real force in Scottish football.
There's clubs like Auchinleck, the junior, or the Ayrshire junior top sides are all in that league now. Kelty, I've been at Kelty as a manager as well, assistant manager, but Kelty, they've got Barry Ferguson as a manager, and it's not.
Kelty have just signed 3 players from Peterhead this season.
Aye.
It's
giving them jobs. They get jobs.
Yep. I believe it's a gentleman. It owns a sports company who recently took over Soccer World in Aberdeen. It's the force behind Kelty Hearts. So they've got a big circle there, and they've got access to a lot of people in the game, and they've certainly got a huge amount of ambition, and they're going to take a bit of stopping, I have to say. But that's down to Brora this year to put that right wrong.
It's just a shame that game didn't happen, with Brora and Kelty. That's the thing, because it happened with Cove obviously a couple of years ago that Eric was involved in.
Yep.
And getting promotion through that way, and it's just it's almost like a season where these two teams, I don't know how much Brora spent, but I know Kelty spent a fortune, and it's all to nothing because they never got promotion.
I know, the only thing, my local team's Brechin, and the only good thing to come out of this COVID is to stop them and get relegated. They would have went down without doubt. I watched them a few times. They were very, very poor. They would have definitely went down. And they would have just disappeared into oblivion because they would have been made to play in the Highland League as well. So they would have just been gone as a club.
Yeah.
So they saved themselves with this pandemic just now.
Yep, interesting times ahead. A few, I'm not going to say chips on shoulder, but there's a few people who've got points to prove, and it'll be very, very interesting this year. Willie, fantastic insight to your time in the Highland League, and for now, thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. Edwards.
And back to Eric Watson. Eric, before we go on and look at your career with Montrose Rosalie, you talked about Brechin City there. Did Brechin not make a point that they wanted to go into they didn't want to go into the Highland League, they wanted the boundaries changed, that, the boundary is if you're north of Dundee, you go to the Highland League. If you go down, if you're south of Dundee, you go into the Lowland League. But Brechin wanted to go into the Lowland League because most of their players came from that area, didn't they?
I think the whole squad was down from the Central Belt in Edinburgh, Fife. A lot of them were from Fife as well. So, yeah, I think the boundary is the Tay River, actually. So when it'd be north of that, we put it in the Highland League. And Montrose, a few years previous, when they just scraped out against Brora in that playoff game, I think big Marvin Andrews scored. I went and watched that game. They would have probably disappeared as well had they gone into Highland League as well. But to be fair, they've bounced back and went from strength to strength, Montrose. So hopefully Brechin gets a wake-up call for this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that game. I was there that day. That was the day Sid got sent off, when Sid Mackay got sent off and Brora were reduced to 10 men. And then Gary came up with that screamer. Gary now for Man United came up with that screamer of a goal from about 35 yards into the roof of the net. Yeah,
it was a cracking goal. I went and I hadn't seen Montrose, but I fancied Brora that day. But no, Montrose turned up. The whole town actually turned up to that game. It was a great game. And Gary Wood got a great goal, and I remember big Marvin Andrews bulleting home a header as well.
Yeah, I think Joe Marlin was still looking for it, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Montrose Rosalie, your local big junior team, and they are a big junior team in that area, Eric.
It is. They'd be the biggest team in the kind of, well, I would say in my area anyway, but going through just kind of moving up a level into juniors from the amateurs, it was good to see again. There was more experienced players, better players in the Rosalie team I played, and it's just the facilities. It's more professional. Juniors coming back down the way you think juniors is a wee bit less professional in the Highland League and the semi-professionals, but juniors to the amateur leagues is so much more professional than I'd seen. So it was a good step up, and what a time I had there. I was a lot of young guys in there. I must have been about 20 to 23, 24 years old, just at the peak of being youth, and we had a great drinking culture after the games there as well. There was a great squad of boys, and we'd be out in Montrose in our tracksuits all hours of the night. So it was just great fun. And we won games. We won a lot of games. We won trophies. Yeah. And what we find out?
Good. There's young Mr. Garner coming in with a wee.
Who was the manager then, Eric?
There was an old guy, Mike Simpson, who was the manager when I first came in. He'd been the manager of Rosalie for like 20 years or something like that.
Right.
And then a guy, David Balfour and Roy Gill, took over as player managers.
Right.
And Roy's still involved in it. I think he's the chairman now.
What year was that? Because I was at Tayport and Montrose were a right decent side then. What year were you there?
I was there about 1999 to, oh no, about 2000.
2001 till 2007.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't on Wikipedia. You haven't made it.
No.
You haven't got a Wikipedia page yet, Eric.
I'll have to make it.
After tonight.
Yeah.
You'd have played in at Tayport.
We had a good. It was actually I'd signed before I signed for Cove. I signed a form for Tayport. I'm just trying to remember the name of the manager at the time. Who was the manager before you, John? Conway, Frank Conway.
Frank Conway, yeah, that's right. Yeah, just before me. Yeah.
He came up and actually I signed a form because I made my mind up that I was leaving Rosalie and I was wanting to go to a bigger team. And at that time, like I think Tayport was one of the biggest teams in Tayside, so I was like, I'll go and sign for them. So he came up to the house and signed. And about a day after, John Sharon phoned me. So it was a big thing that they had to get my forms back from Tayport so I could sign for Cove. So I think they still made a couple of grand off me, and I had never even stepped through.
I remember that.
So signed me. Cove had to pay Tayport about a couple of grand to get me.
You didn't win any silverware, as you said, Eric, in your youth career, but you won the League One Championship along with Montrose and Rosalie in your second season, and back-to-back League Cup wins in 2003, 2004. So it was nice to get a bit of success and get some silverware.
Yeah, there was a team, Rosalie, and because Montrose was right at the top of Tayside, they couldn't get the Dundee guys. They never really had the money as well, so it was all local guys. But when I came, there was younger guys getting a bit of experience, and we just become a really good team at the right time. And I remember we won the first division, and we won it was the Aberdeen Dundee Cup. It was inter-regional cup, so we would have been in the old first division, and we were playing our Premier League teams and Aberdeen Premier League teams, and went on and won that. So that was a fair old achievement for Little Montrose Rosalie.
And
it was good, and I do remember a guy, Alan Riddle. He was one of the older guys on his way out at Rosalie.
But
and he had said to me, he goes, we're celebrating after that cup win. He's like, remember, enjoy this, because you never know when you're going to get your next trophy. And just being young and naive, you just didn't really take it on board. But I know I've been lucky in my career. I've won plenty of silverware, but there's been loads of good players, especially in the Highland League and that. I've never won Highland Leagues, and they've been fantastic players, and they've just never been fortunate to be in the teams that have won the league at the time.
Yeah, that's true. But you 6 seasons at Montrose Rosalie, you must have all developed together, Eric, and it must have been a great camaraderie, but you must all have become better players together. You'd have known, the experience you get with playing with your teammates season in, season out. Must have been really enjoyable.
Yeah, my little brother came in the season after, actually. He played in the same team. My cousin was there, and the guys from Montrose are a couple of years older than us, but as I say, we developed for 5 years together, and we just come better and better. And we, being up in Tayside, the top of Tayside, we were never really streetwise enough. As like you go down to Dundee teams like the Tayports and the Lochie Uniteds and stuff like that. They were experienced pros, well, ex-pros and stuff you're playing against. And they always kind of had the upper hand on just time wasting, going down for fouls, and just the stuff that kind of come natural as you get older. But we were so naive at the time, we didn't have that about. By the time I left, we had developed that so we can compete with anybody on their day.
Yeah, they were streetwise, maybe, Eric, a bit more, eh?
Yeah, that's it. And I heard you speaking about the Central Belt boys club football and stuff like that. And John Sharon was he used to speak about it all the time, that just the hunger the guys had for the game down there. I don't know what it was. They just seemed a lot more hungry, or just willing to go that extra mile to win, run that extra wee yard. And they just did whatever it takes to win, and I like that kind of attitude about it. And we kind of got that eventually at Rosalie, as I said, as we developed and matured as a team. Yeah.
You mentioned your kid brother, the younger brother. Am I imagining this, or is he not a striker? Did he not follow you to Cove Rangers for a wee while? Am I imagining that?
No, yeah, he came up. He played a couple of seasons. I think he finished top goal scorer the first season. Kevin Tyndall took him up, and then the second season, I think he brought in another couple of strikers. I think he got injured. I think maybe got a silly red card, and once Tyndall, he was a very strong-minded manager. Once he kind of struck you off, you were gone. Like, so Callum he had fell foul of that. So a season he spent frustratingly just on the bench at Cove. But his first season he was really good.
If I remember rightly, a very physical, strong laddie.
Yeah, fast. He got all the pace. I think I didn't get much of that. And he was solid as well. He wasn't as tall as me. He was 5'10" or something like that, but he was just solid, really, really strong. Liked to scrap as well. So it'd have been every centre half nightmare. Somebody who was strong and somebody who was quick. That's just didn't know what you wanted.
Okay, how old were you, Eric, when you left Montrose? And we'll develop this in the next part. But how old were you when you left Montrose after 6 seasons in the juniors?
I think it was 24 or 25 the time I turned it out at Cove. So it's probably quite late getting into the Highland League, and it was something Highland League was I knew nothing about really. I googled it actually when John had phoned, and I told the wife that Cove Rangers was in to sign me. So, and I was up in Aberdeen one day, found out where the pitch was, and went and looked over the wall at Allen Park just to see the pitch. And again, coming from Rosalie the juniors to Allen Park, it looked so much more professional again. So I was kind of taken by that for a start.
Yeah. And are you not from Lornskirk, if I remember correctly, Eric? Is it Lornskirk you're from?
Yeah, well, Fettercairn, the little village just not far from there, but Lornskirk would be my local kind of town.
Would you know the former Ross County legend and what a striker he was? His nickname was G.O. and it was Brian Grant. You remember? You may not remember.
Brian Grant, I remember Brian Grant, yeah. Yeah, certainly remember him. Was he Lornskirk?
I think it was Lornskirk, if I remember rightly. Yeah.
See Aberdeen?
Yeah, I'll have to check.
I
thought he was Aberdeen, yeah.
Brian Grant, no, there was a Brian Grant from Stirling, but there was a Brian Grant that Aberdeen signed, and then I'm sure he went to Ross County, a striker.
I think he lived latterly in Lornskirk, if I remember rightly. G.O. was his nickname.
Right.
Striker. Well, maybe you're the only famous one from Lornskirk, Eric. Maybe I'm wrong here.
That's what I tell everyone down there, anyway. No, they've got the Suitors. The Suitors, they stay just along the road. Well, they grew up just along the road from John Suitor. It's at Hearts, and Harry Suitor, I think he's down at Fleetwood Town just now. And young Gold, it was at Dundee United. It went away to Portugal. I played football with his father actually in the amateurs here as well. So they trumped me on that football side.
But in my book, they're not as good as you because they've never made it into my team of the year either, Eric. We'll back up there just now. Back to Martin. We'll develop your magnificent career at Cove Rangers very shortly, Eric. Thanks for that.
No problem. Cheers.
Superb. Charlie, after 13 years at Mossett Park, you up sticks and you head to Bucky. How did that come about, sir?
I was getting a bit stale at Forest. You know, I'd been there that long, and I was just sort of ever present, and I fancied a challenge, a different challenge. And I worked with a boy who, Davy Smith, the Fochabers, and we talked about football quite a lot. And I said to him, you know, I fancied a new challenge, and you know, I didn't know what to do about it and that. But funny enough, his brother-in-law was Kevin Will, who was a Bucky manager. So he must have been away and told him. And you know, Kevin gave me a phone, and I went and spoke to them. Boogle was a manager at Forest, who had built up a great relationship with off the pitch, him and his wife Nicola. And Boogle was trying to, get me to stay. I spoke to Kevin and boys for Bucky, and I just decided that I needed a challenge, and Bucky was one of the better teams that are in the Highland League at that time. So I thought I would go for it.
You didn't have to wait long before you got your hands on some silverware books in the second season.
Yeah.
When you warmed up with Aberdeenshire Cup.
Yeah, I never got to play in that the final of that. Big squish injured me. But as Eric will say, Willie will say as well, you know, when you start a league campaign, your main aim is to win the league. You know, it doesn't matter what team you play for, you'd love to win the league. I'd been at Forest for 13 years. Hadn't really had one season we had a sniff of winning the league when Stevie Patterson was the manager. But other than that, it was just cups. You know, we were getting good runs in the cup, and I really wanted to win the league. You know, if I known then what I know now that Forest were going to win the league, then I don't think I would have went to Bucky. I would have stayed at Forest, but hindsight, I jumped ship and went to Bucky and won the league and then come back.
Were you still at Bucky when Forest won the league?
No, I was at Forest.
You got back to Forest when you won the league?
I went back to Forest, and then we won the league. Yeah.
Also,
won the league.
Fantastic, you know, fantastic achievement for everybody at Bucky. None more so. And we speak about it most weeks. Joe and Annie Jappy, what a pair! God rest Joe. He was a wonderful character. Maybe Annie was an even bigger character.
It was the two of them are absolutely brilliant. Obviously, my kids were a main. I love taking them to the football and that. So every time we went into Bucky, we'd go up the stairs for a cup of tea and a cake, and Joe would give the two of them £1, you know, and then he would go away out and that, and he'd say, that old man always gives me £1. He's a nice old man, you know. Said, what do you get? A drab. That's what I'm going to have with Joe. But then Annie, we were baking and that. Yeah.
The same Annie would cut you down if you thought you were, you know, getting the advantage of her, would you?
Oh yeah. The tongue was like a sword. That would just chop you in half.
Fantastic.
But a great woman, Annie.
Yeah, really fantastic couple. And I used to enjoy. Joe used to tell me that back in the day in the Highland League there were no linesmen. It was club linesmen. So they had to have an official club linesman, and that was his job. And a tough job, because they were playing in front of crowds of 5,000-6,000 in the Highland League grounds. Now, believe you me, you know, if you put 6,000 people into a wee ground like Victoria Park Bucky, it doesn't look like 6,000. It looks like 60,000. So that was a tough old task he had in his hands. Yeah. But a wonderful character, and we'll miss him. We'll miss him something terrible.
Yeah, he was great. Same with his son as well, Joe. Young Joe. One of the first games my kids were there, my son threw a piece of chewing gum over the dike. It came down and hit Joe in the head. I said, you better go down there and apologise to that man. Of course, Joe was pure bald, you know. This bit of chewing gum bounced off his head, and my son went away down and says, "I'm sorry, mister. Didn't mean to do that." And Joe said, "It's all right. They're £1. Go and get a sweetie." Kids do something wrong when they get £1.
I think it's testimony to how popular Joe was, in respect that when his day came and funeral in Bucky, and it was an absolute who's who of North football that day. Yeah. A sad occasion, but a great tribute to the man that so many people in football, and it's, you know, undoubtedly it's difficult for people to get time off work, etc., to travel to funerals at that time, and it was a huge testament to the man, how well thought he was by the people that turned out. If I recall, I think there wasn't even standing room in the church. I think those people couldn't get into the church.
That's right.
That day, you know, as I say, we'll miss Joe, and a big shout out to Annie if she gets the opportunity to see this. Yeah. Big shout out for everybody at Northern Lights.
You can speak about Bucky in 20-year time, and Annie and Joe will still come up, you know, up in the conversation. They're just legends there.
Absolutely. But at the end of that season, you returned to your first home, your first love, Mossett Park, and well, you didn't have to wait for trophies very long there either, because you win the North Cup the first season, and then that much sought after trophy. Now, you've been doing the road already by this time.
Yeah.
Massive achievement for for Forest Mechanics to win the league that year?
Really, I mean, we set out that league season. You know, we expecting a cup. We got a good run in the cup again. You know, in the final of that, won it. Top 6 in the league would have been a great achievement for us. We hadn't spent any money. You know, bringing in players. You know, it was all just a team. You know, big bruisers. You know, we were a big team and we played to our strengths. But we had some skillful boys in there as well. You know, like Kyle Scott, Willie Garner, Neil White just dragged the team along. You know, he was one of the workhorses of the team. So it was great that these sort of guys and that win got a chance at the title. So it was pleasing. It was pleasing for me because it was something I had set out to do when George Cowie had signed me. We wanted to win the league for the likes of, you know, there's people at that club that have been there for 40, 50 years. Willie McLean's been there for 30 odd years. You know, Bruce Hayes been there for, he's still part of it just now. You know, so it was great for us to win the league and give these boys something to cheer about.
And people, the wee Doc, was he?
Yeah,
there at
yeah,
Doc, you know, a great.
Yeah, he was the chairman.
Great reward for these guys' efforts, because believe you me, you know, they put a power of work. I mean, all three of you will fully appreciate the work that goes on behind the scenes in Highland League clubs. You know, I mean, I'm fortunate in respect that you know, it's my paid job to work at Peterhead, but there's a lot of guys put in an awful lot of hours. Just Stuart McPherson's of this world, phenomenal amount of hours, and the only reward they get is to see their team playing this Saturday. So they must be hurting just now with all this lockdown. They'll be working 10 times as hard to try and get games on. There's paperwork coming at you from every direction, and you know, our manager Jim McNally had said we were down at Dens Park last week, and he'd said to the players before the game, "Go out there and enjoy this game, guys, because you wouldn't believe the amount of work that the other guys here tonight have had to do to get the game on." But even when there's no pandemics, you know, from Wick to Fort William, you know, every club puts in a power of work behind the scenes, and it's really a labour of love, and you know, we can't underestimate how much work these people do.
Yeah, I know James Anderson, the Doc. He put in you know, he was constantly on the go for things because he was retired. You know, so he was always trying to do things for the club. Unfortunately, he resigned, but he's back with us now. He's our COVID-19 delegate.
COVID-19 officer. Well, there you go. You see, you've got a luxury there, because the downside of being full-time with a club is I'm a general manager, I'm a stadium manager, I'm the shop manager, I'm a commercial manager, and surprisingly enough, I'm the COVID-19 officer as well. A big shout out to the Doc. Of course, they would have had their work cut out as well, because round about the same time, they hosted a pretty big team in the Scottish Cup, and they would have had to jump through quite a lot of hoops to get that game on.
Yeah, that was
Rangers, and you opted to play the game at Mossett Park, which was probably the right decision, and I think it set the template for teams in later years, such as Fraserburgh, to go and do the same thing. But what a memorable occasion! And you had the whole world and their dog looking in, including visits from Soccer AM and the likes.
Yeah, they were great for the wee town. You know that we get drawn against Rangers. Everybody was absolutely buzzing. The phone was constantly going for tickets, and you know, just couldn't switch it off, because it was crazy. It was a crazy time. Soccer AM, getting the young boys, not Scotty Moore, Simon Allen, you know, they loved it. You know, it was really good. Even the Doc get involved with Soccer AM. But no, that was a special occasion for the team. I've always said, you know, if Charlie had played me, you know, the last 10 minutes, I think we'd have got a replay, but he chose not to. So.
Well, obviously, crucially, there was a sending off as well, so it could have been different on the day. 1-0 was the final score, is that right?
1-0, yeah.
1-0. So close, Charlie,
Yeah.
so close.
Big Graham Fraser had a header in the last couple of minutes. Just put it by the post. Kyle missed I'd say it was an easy chance, but he's saying it was 70-30, you know, but it could have been different, you know. Rangers are my team, so to get a replay done at Ibrox would have been really, really good. It would have been immense. But not to be.
Charlie.
I fancied you that day, actually.
Yeah, sorry, Eric.
I fancied Forrest that day. I didn't think Rangers would like playing against the team you had.
No,
just a bunch of giants.
They were. That's how.
Coming forward, I used to always have to pick up the biggest.
It was.
I had to pick up the biggest guy coming forward for corners, and I remember looking around. It was like the two Fraser brothers. There was Sharpie, Kyle Scott, and Big Ryan Greenon. There was 5 of them. I was like,
there's only one ball, Eric. It's going to attack the ball.
But what a fantastic day for the team, for the club, and for the town. And thanks to modern technology, it's out there on the internet for everybody to see as well. And plus the wee bit of fun in the background with the soccer AM, the day soccer AM came to Bossett Park. Absolutely fantastic stuff, Charlie. Thanks for that. Over to you, David.
Willie, you started your career with a top junior club, and for most of the 90s, after you left Berwick, you were at some of the really top junior clubs like Craig Royston, Newton Grange Star, and latterly Hart Hill. Newton Grange particularly, a very big club indeed in the junior ranks.
Yeah, and again, it was the opportunity to go and play. I knew one of the guys that was on the committee in Newton Grange, and again, it was just do you fancy it? And I went, yeah, why not? But Newton Grange hadn't long moved into a new stadium, and you know, great, fantastic facilities. That's an appeal to any coach or manager to go in, where there's training facilities and a new stadium. And we're a really good side, and I thoroughly enjoyed the juniors. But it was probably the first time I'd played football in the risery at that level, and I was getting on in years a wee bit. But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It was a wee bit more physical than I thought the senior game was, to be honest. And there was a lot of people who just got there as quick as they could, and if you were a kind of name, then they thought, well, you're a target. So yeah, enjoyed it. Enjoyed my time in Newton Grange. Yeah,
Craig Royston's a big club as well, of course.
No, sir, no. They've folded. Yeah, they folded. My pal of mine. They were in the East of Scotland League, Craig Royston.
Okay.
The same with Hart Hill. Hart Hill aren't a big club either, to be honest. A guy, a pal of favour going out there. And ended up Stevie Cowan and I were the management team at Hart Hill. Stevie and I were the only 2 people who didn't support Rangers. And honestly, so how we managed to get there, I'll never know. But good times. And I went to Glenrothes, who were a big club. Glenrothes had won the Junior Cup many years ago. And you know, it's just what you said, Martin. It doesn't matter the level that you go to. The people behind the scenes at these clubs do unbelievable work. You know, mainly to keep them running, because they're in there and they're not getting paid. They get their reward for their game on a Saturday, and when you get the manager versus the manager and the committee meeting on a Tuesday night after the result on a Saturday, then they get their say as well. You know. And I could see younger, inexperienced managers cracking at some of these absolute lunatics who sit around that boardroom table and they've got an opinion. You're thinking, they're like that. If they've not got a question, just ask the question the boy before asked. So, and I enjoyed that. That's just part of the banter, isn't it? That's part of the game, as I call it. You know, just everyone's a game, and it's how you deal with it. And I enjoyed my time in the juniors.
Martin wants to come in. He's got his hand up.
Can I just say I'm familiar with the ground at Newton Grange. I actually stayed for a year in Pincaitland.
Okay, lovely.
And they had a very good amateur team at that time and went on to amalgamate with Ormiston, etc.
Ormiston Primrose, that's right.
I remember them playing friendlies as an amateur team at Newton Grange. And they must have had massive crowds there at one time, because that was a huge stand. The big curved dome, almost like an Anderson shelter type roof.
That was old ground, Martin, wasn't it?
I've also been to new ground, because for Martin United youth team played what used to be the BP Scotch Cup. Played a Scotch Cup tie against Hearts.
Hearts used to use it.
There. And you're right, fantastic facility. A bit more usable, I suppose, to run that big ground. And I think it's all houses. Actually, I've got a brother that stays up in that area where near Newton Grange, and I think it's all housing in there now. So they've obviously have.
Well, they would have got the money from the houses, and it's all expensive houses that are there.
Yeah.
So they got the money for that, and they got the promise that the house builders would also build them a stadium. So there's win-win.
They've got a fantastic club, social club as well.
Yeah.
Well, traditionally, a lot of ex-senior players, Scottish League players, used to drop into the Highland League. Was it the same in the juniors down in the West Coast, down that area? That a lot of ex-seniors, Scottish League players would drop into the top-level juniors?
And you're spot on, Dave. And it was because of the finances, you know. And you mentioned this earlier on. There are a lot of junior clubs who are better run than some of the senior clubs. And you're right, they will come to the top. The cream will come to the top in that pyramid system. The only problem is there's only so many can go up, and there's a lot of them going to be challenging for that. Mm-hmm. Clubs like Bonnyrigg now, and I said Auchinleck, Bo'ness. These clubs are all magnificently run with huge money, huge pots of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they have, you know.
What sort of crowds were the likes of Newton Grange getting when you were there, Willie? Because fairly well attended, I would imagine.
Yeah, you depended who you were playing, because you're the local derby's Bonnyrigg. You know, Bonnyrigg are a huge club as well, and you're getting 6,000-7,000 people coming to these games. And you know, and we were saying you were getting that up at Bucky. Some of the top ties in the Highland League as well would attract, if it's local derbies, and I think every game in the Highland League's a local derby almost. These towns are all next to each other up when you go up to Forres and Keith and Elgin and Bucky and all these places. But good crowds, really good turnout, and the junior game has deteriorated like everything else down this neck of the world, because it's only the teams north of the 5 teams are all in that new Lowland League, or that new setup. But the Dundee teams like Lochee and Tayport and that, they refused to go into it because of the expense, the travel.
The 2 seasons, yeah.
Obviously, the juniors haven't been into it either.
Yeah. 2 seasons into your time at Newton Grange, you decided to hang up the boots, Willie. That's the only way to put it. Hang up the boots and concentrate on being a manager rather than a player or manager. But you had a long, distinguished career, and it was maybe the right time, was it?
I think it was. I was a fair age. You know, I still got the most nutmegs at training when we played the boxes. You know, because I'm being honest, Fergie came into the club at Aberdeen, and I think every day we played 5v2 in the boxes. You know, whether it was for a warm up or whether it was an intense drill just to get the players touch of the ball. You know, I had a boy. I signed him I was at Tayport, and I had a boy called Lee Bryce. John McGlynn had it, Raith Rovers, and I phoned John and I says, "You any players for me?" I've got this young boy Bryce. He says, "Honestly, well, he's the fastest thing you've ever seen in your life, the fastest." And I thought, okay, I'll take him. It doesn't matter. I'll mould him into something if he's got that kind of pace. And Tayport had a massive pitch, as Eric will verify. And so I took Bryce in, and he was a lovely boy. He was training to be a policeman, and a lovely kid. And he would do anything for you, you know, if you wanted the fences painted, or he would just do anything for you. But as soon as the boxes come out, he says, "Can I just go and run?" You know, first touch was like, no, you know, just play over the top. You know, and you play over the top, and you don't know what it's. Honestly, it was like Forrest Gump. You do a box of chocolates. You didn't know you were going to get next as soon as the ball was played over the top as well. But a threat to defenders. Yeah. But I stopped playing. And I think as players, and the two guys that are on here as well will verify that as well. You play as long as you can. You know, if you're enjoying it and still playing, then you play as long as you can, because that time, once it's over, you know, it's in your head think I could play, you know.
Yeah.
I haven't been involved in football for a while now. I was at Ballingery last, and I haven't been involved since then. I've just started playing golf every day of the week, and I miss the dressing room. You know, I miss that training on a Tuesday and a Thursday, and the crack with the guys, and the banter on a Saturday. I don't miss getting beaten a Saturday. I don't think any of us like that. But I miss the whole lead up to a game where it's banter, and if you can't survive in a football dressing room, then you're going to struggle, aren't you? So
The smell of liniment, Willie. The smell of liniment.
If it's still got liniment in Dublin, going to go, David.
Martin will explore the final days of your career with Tapot and Ballingery. I once played with a guy from Ballingery. I hadn't seen that name since I played with him. A wee guy called Pud Patterson, who played with him in the schoolboy international team. He went on to play with the Dunfermline Athletic as a striker, and I believe maybe one or both his legs, sadly. But that's the first time I've seen the word Ballingery since I played many years ago, almost 50 years ago, with that young man.
That's where Big Rugby comes from.
He's from Ballingery as well.
Ballingery,
yeah.
actually, I'd never heard it either. It's called Big Doogie, the Big Ballingery bat. You know, every time he just went flying. You know, and the arms came out, and he got the Ballingery bat.
Good. Charlie Brown's got a Doug Rugby story, I think.
Aye. My first game in the Highland League was against Huntly. It was Doug Rugby and Dave Morland, the centre halves. So I went up, first 5 minutes, I said, "You have got to be the ugliest pair of centre halves I've ever played against in my life." Well, Doug Rugby hit me. Davy Morland got me when I hit the deck. I was booted up and down the park. Nobody had told me that, Dave Morland, man, is just crazy. And Doug Rugby, I knew he played for Aberdeen, but I didn't think he was going to be played for Huntly that day. Well, never again. It's the worst thing I've ever said to them.
You're either brave or foolish, Charlie.
I'm foolish.
Willie, thanks so much for sharing some of those memories with us.
Pleasure.
Eric, did you want to say come in there?
Aye, sorry, it was just a Doug Rugby story from when I was at Lothermuir, just as a wee skinny teenage boy. Again, I was one of the bigger boys better than there to pick up the centre half coming forward. And I think Doug Rugby played for Kincorth at the time. And he come trotting forward at Lothermuir, and here's me standing next to this full-grown man. And he's saying to the referee, look at this guy, he's about to try and foul me here. And the corner came in, the next thing he's just tramples right over the top of me and just left lying on the ground looking at the sky. What a size of a man he was.
Big boy.
A big general guy. Big Doogie started the Mexican wave, you know that? Big Doogie, if he played back, he kicked the ball with his right foot, and if he played left back, he kicked the ball with his left foot. And he wasn't actually left-footed. And it was like every time he pulled his foot back up that left-hand side, the first 5 rows of the stand were like back like that.
Eric, I'll stay with you here. This football pathway you create for yourself, you obviously just move up juveniles, amateurs, juniors, and then, as you say, you had a wee blip with Dayport, thinking you're going to go heading south on a Saturday. Instead, you headed north to a completely new entity with your own admission. I mean, that's a modern day for you. You know, when people are having to Google the Highland League and Google Cove Rangers to see who they're playing for. But you didn't have long to wait for your first title, because it was the first season there.
First season there, yeah. As I say, it was more or less a whole new team John had brought in that summer, and it just clicked. It just really clicked. There's a lot of misfits brought in from other teams as well. Like Jamie Watt couldn't get a game at Inverurie Locos, even though he could score goals. He came in, scored, I don't know how many goals that's seen. Barry Stevens, he wasn't getting a game wherever he was, so he brought in as well. No, it was just a great time.
Now, I risk danger of getting hate mail or even maybe a chap on my door for saying this, but Dave, I think you'll agree with me here. Cove brought a certain level of professionalism to the Highland League. It hadn't been seen for a long time. And, you know, yeah, you know, no one likes the new boys. The new boys come in and they're all dressed with their flannels and their blazers. But it must have been a big, you know, step up for you. No disrespect to Montrose Rosalie, they would have had their standards. But suddenly this would have been a really professional, well-organised, well-oiled outfit. And that in itself helps lift your you know, your game, I'm sure, and your attitude towards your personal game.
Definitely, as I said, that Rosalie, latterly, everyone there, most of the team I was friends with and would go out on a Saturday. So it's a whole new experience to join a new team. And as you say, the experience, just the professionalism and the experience of some of the guys like Kevin Tyndall. He was great for me because I travelled with him, so he picked me up the first day. And there's Scott Patterson and Craig Cooper, I think, all guys that had played in the higher leagues, and they were on their way down. So it was great to get their experience straight off the bat as I come in the door. And that was the guys I travelled with for the first few months after joining Cove.
And suddenly you've been going to places you might never even heard of before.
Yeah, absolutely. The most I knew about the Highland League, the only two teams I knew about the Highland League was Forest Mechanics. I wasn't sure if they were all mechanics on there. Another team was Clacknacuddin, because that was just a cracking name. How could you forget that? That was the only two teams I really knew in the Highland League.
And so suddenly you're going to Rothes, Lossy and Claggan Park. Which is
yeah, exactly. I've seen some beautiful bits of of Scotland that I would never have seen otherwise, so I'm glad.
Now, the subject that comes up quite over the series is, and you said already you had a wee tea tour of the Wa to see Allen Park before you actually signed, but you know, obviously the answer to this is no, it wasn't a problem given the amount of trophies you won over the years. But you know, was the size of the park an issue for the likes of yourself?
I never really thought about it. I knew it felt small, but it was just, I thought the games at Allen Park are just always exciting because, as I say, the amount of late goals we scored, you just believed anywhere on the pitch, the ball could be in the box and you could have a chance of scoring. And the amount of late goals, late winners we got, especially at Allen Park, you could just out of nothing, you could be in the box and there'd be a chance and there'd be a goal. It was just always exciting games, and there was never nils at the end of the games. It's like 4-2s or 3-4, just loads of goals all the time.
So would you agree perhaps maybe it was more of a psychological advantage you had over your opponents on the basis that they thought there might be an issue with it?
I don't actually know. I never seen it as one. I really did. Did other teams really?
Well, let's ask a man himself, Charlie. Did
they think we did play it to our strength? We did.
Yeah, no, I love playing at Allen Park. It was. Yeah. I remember one time I was on the bench and I was warming up behind the goals, and I think Charlie Rowley was the manager at the time, and he shouted me in, and one of your supporters leaned over the barrier and says, "I hope you break your leg." And I was like, "Oh," I was giving him dogs abuse all the way back. He was standing beside the boy in the committee, and I was giving him dogs abuse, and he's giving me dogs abuse. And then 5 minutes since I come on, 1-through 1-on-1, dinked it to the goalkeeper, and I was trying to run all the way back up to see him, and he just turned his back on me. Like, you dirty. But that was just, that's Allen Park. But I mean, see, after the game, the cool supporters and all that, they were all saying to me, "Look, you shouting at that boy," and I was telling them and that, and they were like, nightmare. The supporters at Cove are brilliant. They're really some good boys there. That goal always sticks in my mind, because he said that.
I might say is, as a referee, you really had to be on your toes. You really had to be alert, because things could change really, really quickly. You suddenly it's, you know, you're defending from box to suddenly it's into attack.
That's it.
And yeah, I think I twice ran into Charlie Christie in the middle of the park and put him on his backside. Or maybe he ran into me, I'm not quite sure. But, you know, from a refereeing point of view, you really had to be alert, because things could change really, really quickly. But it's interesting to see that the vast majority of people we've had on the show, with the exception of maybe one or two, have all said the same thing. It wasn't a problem. It wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
It was great for a centre half, isn't it? Because you didn't get moved anywhere. You know, you had no chance.
There's no room for the strikers to run the channels, was there?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
So, at that time as well, of course, as well as, you know, doing so well domestically, Cove went on some great Scottish Cup runs as well. You had a few scalps under your belt. Tell us about some of the trips and some of the games you had.
We had Ross County one at home. What's that? I can't mind if was that a midweek. That was a midweek. No, it wasn't. It was meant to be midweek. It was Saturday. I think it got called off twice and eventually played the following Saturday. No, it was a midweek game. We got beat. Compton. I think we were about 4-0 down at half time, and then I think we got a couple of goals back the second half. But like Airdrie away, latterly actually we beat Airdrie down at Airdrie. That was a great game, a great result. I think they were a full-time team as well at the time. We played Airdrie down there before as well. I think we were beat 2-0. Murray McCulloch just about scored to put us 1-0 up, so that could have been a different that day as well. Where else have we been? And then latterly you got to play the Betfred Cup as well, so you got to play some big teams in that as well. So Partick Thistle away was probably our best day out actually. We did really well down there. There's a guy who got sent off. And to be fair, I hadn't even been winding the striker up, but he went over on the halfway line on the far side, and I kind of fell over the top of him. He just kicked out and kicked me in the stomach with his studs. So of course I went down. The ref hasn't seen it, the linesman's seen it, and sends him off. I can't remember his name. I think he went on to play for Ross County. So they were down to 10 men. I think they were 2-0 up at the time, and then we scored to make it 2-1 late on, but we just didn't. We lacked the belief early enough to go on and have a right go at that game. But I feel we could have gotten a replay out of that game. But that felt like a really big pitch down at Partick Thistle. It was great, and just great playing in them kind of stadiums. I obviously come up the way from amateurs, juniors to the Highland League to play these teams instead of coming down like some of the other players you meet in the Highland League. So it's a great experience for me to play in these stadiums.
Yep. Now, let's just go through the array of trophies. And apologies if I miss any out here. But during your tenure with Cove Rangers, you picked up 2 Aberdeenshire Shields, 2 Aberdeenshire Cups, 3 Highland League Cups, and 6 Highland League Champions medals. That's a fair takings for your period of time. And as you, I think Charlie said, there's players who have played their entire career in the Highland League and never won a trophy. And again, you know, testament to the ambition and the hard work of the guys behind the scenes.
Yeah, some of the characters in there, like Dodie cleans the boots, and he would be up at Allen Park every night with his brother Neil, just doing the unseen things, I suppose, like sweeping up and just doing the things that nobody really thinks about at a club, like Hammy doing the kits, and it's just some great backroom guys there as well. But people turn up on a Saturday, as you say, they don't know the effort and the work rate it goes into getting these games on, and just to run a football club, really, they don't know what goes into it. And then Duncan, of course, he just used to stay in Allen Park. I think he used to have a wee pull out bed there. So for him to be getting that job up at the Balmoral Stadium is just great. I'm well chuffed for Duncan that's happened for him.
Really?
Duncan used to be in the gate. Is that the chairman you're talking about?
Secretary.
Secretary.
Aye, Duncan used to be on it used to take the tickets money at the gates when I was at He's been there a long time.
Aye.
Yeah.
What a wonderful servant.
Yeah.
I was delighted when Cove came into the Scottish League. I now have company go down to Hampden for SPFL meetings. Duncan,
Okay.
Duncan and I take turns to bore tears at each other out in the road.
The only thing with Duncan, it was a nightmare on away days because he was because some of the boys usually would want to get back down the road. You'd have a few beers, grab your carry and get back down the road. And here he is. He'd always be the last one to leave the social club. You'd end up dragging him out the door.
Well, the thing with Duncan is everybody.
He likes the social side.
Everybody wants to speak to Duncan. You know, he works hard, but he enjoys the social side as well. And then there was like Edza. And just a whole host of guys over the years. Cove have always sort of spelt out their intentions to do better for themselves. It's been quite a remarkable rise up through the ranks, given that, you know, we're talking 40 years ago they were an amateur team. You know, a very brief spell in the juniors, albeit. Never played in the Premier League or the Super League in the juniors. I think they had one promotion, but they went straight up to the Highland League that year. And I don't think we're anything close to the end of the story yet. I think.
No, I think I think it's Alan McRae. It's kind of driven that from a start, and then Keith Moorhouse. He's a very ambitious man as well, and I can only see them going strength to strength with the right people in charge. I think they'll do really well. I think Aberdeen's a big enough city to certainly to have two clubs in it, albeit not a Premier League club, but certainly up another couple of divisions. If they can get up to Championship, that would be fantastic for Cove.
Now, Dave is going to come back to you later on and speak about that wonderful day at Berwick, I'm sure. But I want to take you back to that not so wonderful day. Enlighten the viewers, please. Tell us about events that happened at Central Park.
Cowdenbeath. That still hurts now, to be fair. Really, you can go some of your best days of football, and that would be down. That'd be my worst day in football altogether. Definitely, that was just a hard one to take. I don't know. Dave was there that day, weren't you, Dave?
I was there. I had a close-up view of everything that went on. It was a disgrace.
Well, why don't you two guys take us through events, and that way I can sit back. And I want to get in trouble from my bosses at Hampden for saying anything.
Well, the first game up we had in Inverurie, and absolutely battered them. They didn't know what to do with us, but we just couldn't have scored that day. We could have comfortably been 3-0 up going into that second leg, and that's kind of killed us as well. But going into that second leg, we're full of confidence. To be fair, they played a bit better the second leg, but some of that was the decisions that went against us that day. I can't believe it. Still can't believe it to this day that happened.
Yeah, my view of that goal was, and I was right behind the assistant referee, and he was looking at it the same angle as me, where the guy held the Cove player down, didn't he? Basically.
Yeah.
Well, you're telling us, Dave.
Well,
he did. He held him down, and the linesman must have seen it, but he better watch what I'm saying here. He didn't see it. How he didn't see it, I'll never know.
I don't know if I could still get in trouble about it or not. But it's an absolute disgrace.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah. I think an error was made.
My 6-year-old son was in the stand, and he was sitting, and he would have been looking over the top of the linesman, and he said, "Daddy, how does that big striker get to kick Stuart and they get a goal?" And I was like, I just do not know.
Yeah,
it's just after half time. At half time was it? We were right in the game at half time. I think we scored. We were 2-1 up at half time. We were right in it, and it's like somebody. Well, felt like somebody had gone into the dressing room and said, "By the way, Cove can't be promoted today," and that's just a feeling I got. And absolutely everything went against us that second half.
Yeah, but
it still hurts a lot to this day, actually.
I noticed, Eric, that the referee was in first name terms with a lot of the Cowdenbeath players, and I thought that was strange. He was, they were first name terms with the referee, and it was obviously a referee had refereed them fairly often.
Yeah, and in the warm up, I actually said to Roy McBain, I think it was 3 of their committee members. Have you ever seen this on a pitch? I don't know. 3 of their committee members. We were out doing our warm up, and 3 of their committee members are over speaking to the referee, and the 2 linesmen on the pitch on the far side. They had no reason. I think they were even allowed on the pitch at that time. So I tell Roy McBain, go and get them away for that referee there. It was just something was off. Something was definitely off that day.
And then there was
Clydebank's got a lot of history, and I dare say they would have disappeared as well. But that's something that certainly wasn't right there.
Yeah. Did you not finish the game when just 8 players, Eric? Was it 3 club players or 2 players sent off for the incident in the dugout? There was a real rammy with County players and your players, but
Scott Ross. I think I was the last one to go. It was the last kick of the ball, and I was like, I just told the ref what I thought of him, really, to be fair. And I didn't think you'd actually send me off because he sent as many boys off already, but he did. And it was done by then anyway. It was really, that was a hard one to take. Very hard.
Now, I didn't want to steal any thunder from Dave.
But to credit to the club and the boys that we picked ourselves up and bounced back for that the way we did was fantastic as well.
Well, that's what I was going to say, and I don't want to steal Dave's thunder because he's going to speak to you about it next. But do you feel that events of that day, let's say, was a inspiration and give you the desire to go and really just go to town the following season and get it right?
Yeah, and I think players, and some people say maybe weren't ready to go up. Probably behind the scenes, Cove probably weren't ready, but the desire definitely gave us a desire. This is exactly where we need to be next year. We need to be back in this game, final game of the season, and we need to be better and more clinical. As I say, we could have probably won that game in the first leg at Inverurie, and it would have been a foregone conclusion at Central Park that we'd have went up that day, but it wasn't to be. But it's a credit to the boys, a lot of young boys there as well, hungry guys, and there's guys that dropped down for the guys who Peterhead, Mitch Megginson, Masson, Harry's coming through, Scully's wanting to get as high as he can in the game, Blair Ewell as well. So it's a massive credit to them that we went on that run we did the following season, and we got the job done.
Well, we'll hear more about that in a wee bit, but for now, thank you very much, Eric. Dave.
Cheers.
Charlie, Forest Mechanics, you're back at Forest, and basically you've ended your playing career at Forest.
Yeah. Thankfully, Dave. My legs are saying thankfully.
Although there was a chance a couple of years ago, I remember you saying you think maybe you were on the bench and after a couple of seasons no playing, you could have maybe come on. Charlie didn't put you on.
He didn't put me on. He put me on against I had a start against Brora 3 seasons ago. And I managed to get a wee notch. Joe Mallon in goals and Steve Mackay chasing me. I got a wee dink to Joe Mallon, so he scored about 43, 42 coming up, 43-year-old in the Highland League. I was quite pleased with that.
I'll bet you were. I mean, you were always prolific, Charlie. You scored a barrel load of goals in Highland League football.
Yeah, I scored a lot, but that's down to my teammates and all that. I've had a lot of creative players behind me that have played me in that, and I've managed to benefit from their good play.
You've made an awful lot of friends at Mossett Park amongst the crowd as well as the players and all the officials. They've been a great camaraderie between you and the guys, Charlie.
Yeah, we've had a great friendship. There's a lot of really good guys there. Supporters, committee boys, and ex-players. They always want to come back to Forest because it's such a good club.
Yeah. And you're involved in the coaching side now, of course, as well. Yeah,
I'm doing a bit of coaching. Goalkeeping coaching United just now because there's nobody else with them. Child wellbeing officer for the youth development as well. Just gave up the head of youth development job there to take over the child wellbeing. So I'm right involved with them as well, the kids.
And you enjoy that, Charlie?
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good, Dave. It's hard going. So it is. There's quite a lot of stuff coming for the SFA and that you need to be doing. So
Yeah.
But it keeps me going. It keeps me active.
Good stuff. Cheeky Charlie, as it were.
Aye.
We can't have you on, Charlie, without referring to a serious point, a serious thing that happened 5 years ago come November, if I remember rightly, Charlie.
Yeah.
You were suffering from depression. Nobody knew it. Well, I certainly didn't know it. You were suffering from a deep, deep depression. And one evening, one cold evening, you came within minutes of taking your own life. And it was a traumatic time for you, Charlie. And you're happy to talk about it, I know, because it may help someone else that's in a similar situation tonight.
Yeah, Dave, I'm doing a course in that on mental health awareness, and it's obviously it's something close to my heart just now. It's still fresh in my memory what happened that night, and I just hope that nobody goes through the sort of episode that I went through, and obviously my family went through it. And I wouldn't like anybody else's family to go through it. So I really hope that everybody that's got a serious problem or feel as if they've got a problem, they open up and speak about it, because there always is help there, Dave. And I've found that out. I was lucky enough to be a Highland League football player, and the messages of support and the friendships that I've built up over this sort of episode that happened, but the first one to say I never done it for any sympathy. I never done it for, because I was, I wasn't one of the, top people in the Highland League. I done it because I was in a bad way in my head, but I've came out the other side, and I've got, I'd say a bigger family now in the Highland League.
Mm-hmm.
Because the friendships that I've built up just with people speaking to me about it,
Mm-hmm.
people asking how I am, it's phenomenal. The support you get in the Highland League. So if there's any players of that that's feeling that way, whether it be gambling, whether it be suicidal thoughts, anything like that, they need to open up, because there is help there.
And we're so lucky to have you with us, Charlie, because it was, as I say, within a couple of minutes, maybe 5 more minutes, you may not have been with us, and you decided that it was going to be Mossett Park, because I know your dad's ashes were spread at Mossett Park, your late dad, and Mossett Park was where you decided that you were going to end this, but they were looking in Grant Park, the people that were looking for you. It was I suppose just a moment of magic from your brother-in-law, who said, Charlie's no here, Charlie's at Mossett Park.
Yeah. I had been sitting in the house, sort of, I was just sitting myself, and I was thinking, I'm not cut up for this, and I just got my tablets, went away up the shop, got a bottle of vodka that I didn't drink. It was Jack Daniels that I drank at the time, so I don't know why I bought vodka, and then I went down the park and I sat there, and I remember I was thinking about my dad at the time, and I seen a shooting star going by, and I thought, is that him coming to get me? And that's when I tamed him, and I was sitting there, and that's the last I remember. But then I found out that the paramedic told my mum that I was only 3 minutes away from nowhere here, and it was my brother-in-law at the time, Charlie, who was up Grant Park, because seemingly they were phoning me, and I told them I was up Grant Park, so obviously I didn't want to be found.
Mm-hmm.
So I told them I was at Grant Park, and they were all up there looking for me, and it was Charlie that said, he's never up here, he's got to be at Mossett Park, and that's when they come down to Mossett Park, and they found me under the Harry Gow's sign it for us, so I must have had the munchies or something and seen the Harry Gow's sign and went for a pie or something. I don't know, but that's where they got me.
I'm sure you would like to thank the medical staff at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, because you were in a coma for 2 days, Charlie, but you came through it and you're a stronger person, and I'm sure you are a stronger person.
Yeah, Dave, I'm in a lot better position. I still get wee episodes and that, you know, flashbacks of what happened. But it's how quick I got over them now that's helped me. You know, before it used to take me, you know, maybe a day or two to go over thinking things, you know, but now it's only minutes, you know, and that's the main thing for me, you know, is how quick I can banish them thoughts away. So it's, you know, I'm in a lot better place. But yeah, the hospitals and that were great. They looked after my mum, my sisters and that come up from Glasgow. They looked after everybody while I was in the coma. Because obviously I didn't know how long I was in a coma for until a couple of days later we spoke about it.
Glad you're with us, Charlie. The Highland League is indeed a richer place with one Charlie Brown about it.
Cheers, Dave, thanks.
And thanks for your help and your honesty, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Brother.
Just for anybody who's watching the show, we will be putting up a wee slide at the end, just to say, you know, there's no shame in speaking, folks.
No.
So, you know, if you're in a dark place, check out the phone number and speak. It's important. Well done, Charlie.
Martin, can I just say as well, if any players of that are out there that, you know, because I know a couple of players that have approached me and said, oh, I was going to phone you, but I didn't think, you know, you would be interested in helping, or, you know, I didn't want to put that burden on you. You're never going to be a burden. You know, pick up the phone, message me on Facebook or that, and we can, you know, have a chat. I said, because I'm never going to turn anybody away that's needing an ear to bash because they're, you know, struggling with problems and that. I'm always here. I might not have all the answers. I'm never, you know, going to tell anybody I'm professional like that. I've been in a situation. If they're needing somebody to listen to them and get a bit of advice, I'm always here.
I think the biggest problem in football, because we're all men's men, is the stigma of speaking about it.
Yeah.
You know, and really brave thing doing. You're coming on the show and speaking about it openly and honestly, and that should be an inspiration to anybody to pick up the phone. And as I say, we're going to pop a wee slide at the end. So hopefully that'll help people. And if you're a friend of Charlie, indeed, if you're a friend of any of us, if you're in a dark place and you need somebody to speak to, pick up the phone. We'll all pick up.
Yeah,
For sure.
Willie, tough act to follow there. I'm going to speak again about your time in the juniors. Bit of a disappointment at Glenrothes. They're not a big club, I take it, no?
Yeah, firstly, I don't think we've met Charlie.
No.
It's fantastic what you did there just now. So well done, well done.
Yes.
And I hope a lot of people do listen to that and take your advice. So well done.
Yeah, cheers.
Glenrothes, yeah, I was there. I think I was there about a year and a half. Glenrothes were a decent-sized junior club, to be fair.
It's a big town, Willie. Yep.
Sorry.
Glenrothes is a big town, yeah.
A big, that's what I'm saying, huge town. Glenrothes is one of these new towns that they built, like East Kilbride and Glenrothes and Livingston and these type of places, and they became these concrete metropolises of housing and streets you could get lost in. But lots of people, big population. When I went there, they had went through a phase of being reasonably successful with spending money, and like everything else, the money ran out. And they thought, get a kind of experienced guy in to try and get them through what they were going through and make sure they survive. And we did that, but unfortunately, the lure of players, you know, you're at the end of the season, you're waiting and players phoning you back. You're waiting and Real Madrid phoning them, you know. And my good lady just coming in the room, she can tell me get out here in 5 minutes. But the lure of sort of, you know, at that time, you're phoning players saying, you want to sign? Yeah, I'm waiting and Real Madrid or Barcelona coming in. So, and if they're getting £10 more a week somewhere else, then they're going to go there as well. So we lost a lot of players. Again, I had a guy in as my assistant who knew the local area, and you're then going to boys clubs and stuff like that, and you're back to where Eric was years ago, where you've got young boys playing in a man's league, and you can get them organised, you can get them fit, but some of the results go against you because of the lack of experience. And we took the club through the season, and the club did get relegated, and it was probably one of the things that was a blessing in disguise that they got relegated, because we were in the top league in the Super League at that time, and you weren't competing. You couldn't compete with Linlithgow, you know, Bowness, all clubs of big stature who were paying mega money for players to come back for the seniors. And me, even although I knew a lot of managers and the seniors, they didn't want to put their player. Well, the players didn't want to come out, even on loan, just to get a game. So yeah, that was a difficult time, but you move on. That's life, you know. In fact, that's just sport. You just.
Yeah. And then in 2008, you move up to Tayside with Tayport.
Yeah.
Again, massive club.
I'd been at Tayport before. I'd been at Tayport with a boy called Keith Burgess. Keith is the manager of the Scotland junior side. And Budgie and I are very, very good pals. There's no boy, the boy Budgie McGee, you know, at Clydebank, Charlie. You know?
Yeah, Budgie,
Aye, he's a good lad, actually. Yeah. So Budgie was there. I went up and worked with him at Tayport. They had won the Scottish Cup. They beat Lochee in at Canada, I think it was, in the Scottish Cup final. And at that time it was, you know, they were a huge club, Tayport. But similar, Tayport never ever paid for players. You know, never paid big wages to players, even although they've got a lot of top players. They've got a lot of top players because they won things. And they were an attractive club to go to because they were well run. But they were getting more, players were getting more money at other clubs that came there because they had the opportunity to go and win something. And we won the league. We were actually, the season I went back as a manager, we won the league. But to win our last 17 games, to win the league. And we won 17 games in a row.
Wow.
Which was unbelievable. And we beat Forfar West End in the final game. They Joke, I can't mind the boy's name. It was the manager at Forfar West End. Finlayson, yeah. Joke Finlayson. another lovely guy off the park, you know. But as a opposition manager, he was just an absolute, you know, he used to stand behind the linesman, you know. When you were restricted to stay in your dug, Joke used to stand behind the linesman, but a great character in the game. We were going for the league with them, and the winner of that game at Forfar won the league. So we won the league, which was a great achievement. And on that roll of just winning game after game after game, in the 97th minute in the snow against St Andrews, and the game should have abandoned, and you're desperate for the referee not to put the game off, and it's one each in the 97th minute, as I said, and we score a winner where Roberto Morris scored the winner, and you're thinking, this is what it's all about. You know, this is what football is all about. Regardless of the level you're playing at, it's about the excitement of winning, and when you get into the coaching side, as you're doing, Eric, working with players, isn't it, Charlie? Just working with players and seeing them getting better and better as you go on. So, yeah, good times at Tayport. But again, similar now, Tayport are away down the leagues because they've went through a lot of managers in the past and they've not got the finances. Tayport's money came from a car boot sale that they used to have every Sunday. And there was the biggest car boot sale in Fife.
Amazing.
And what they did is they put these tracks or coverings on the park, and the park was covered with cars every Sunday, you know. And it used to be a fantastic party player and end up like a rock because you know, these cars every single Sunday. But it was a rock in a hard place, isn't it? You know, it's like you need to get money in to keep the club going. So, yeah, good times.
You know, obviously, you're speaking there about, you know, changing days in junior football with the advent of the new pyramid system. Junior teams have moved across to the senior ranks, etc. The East of Scotland League, coming in below the Lowland League, etc. The right move, would you say? Is it the way forward?
I'll be honest with Martin, I don't understand it. You know, I've asked a few people about how does that work. who gets promotion? You know, because you've got an Ayrshire league and you've got a Central Belt league, and I'm really not sure how it works. But and at the end of it, how many teams go up out of that pyramid? Possibly one.
Yeah.
Out of, I think the move is for survival in terms of they get a piece of the cake from the SFA. You know, and that's probably the only way that some of these clubs will survive. How they're survive now, you know, down at that lower level where they're not will start playing.
Yep, you touch on it there, survival. Now, you belong to Denny. Yep.
Yeah.
So, Danny Pace Juniors, your local team.
Yeah.
I had a wee sabbatical from the game when I left for Martin. I think I had about 6 weeks before George Yule kindly got me on board with a wee job on a Saturday at Pataudry, and I decided I would go and see teams that I had heard about through seeing names in the green final or whatever, and I said to my wife, I'm going to be out of Scotland. I'm just going to jump in the car on a Saturday, and Dunny Pace was one of them, because Dunny Pace, to my mind, were a big club in my mind.
Yeah.
And I was a wee bit disappointed when I arrived.
I bet you were.
An understatement. The social club was all boarded up.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to Dunny Pace. Funny story, actually. I arrived, paid my money to dance up, bought a raffle, you know, keep a change, give me raffles. And the first thing I noticed was I don't think there was anybody there under the age of 70, running the club. And I'm thinking to myself, who's going to run this club when these guys are no longer here? You know, it's a big pitch and a facility which was totally overgrown around the sides, etc. Obviously, you know, just not the people, the fit people, or perhaps to the working in.
It's changed now. It's changed. They've got the plastic pitch in.
Okay.
My young cousin's a MP, and he helps out in terms of the organisation of the thing now. So he's maybe managed to wangle them a few bob to get a plastic park there.
Good. Well, if it's a
and it's all
project,
painted,
that's good. Yep.
Yeah, and the social club's back up and running as well, because you know, as us older guys will know, the junior club was big part of the town. If you've got a small town, and every small town had a junior club, and everybody was pretty loyal and going and watching them. It's funny. There's a couple of older guys I know who were on the committee when I was a young boy, and I said, "You never asked me to sign for Dunny Pace, you know, my local team," and I was desperate to play for them, desperate. Never asked me to sign for them, so I gave them a sort of middle finger at one point. You know, it's stuffed.
Well, I remember that about that particular day. That particular day was, I get chatting to people standing watching the game as you do, and at half time, the teams are away to come out the second half, and I've got this handful of raffle tickets, and I says to the guy, I says, "Did you hear what the raffle the winning tickets were?" And he laughs and he turns to his mates and goes, "Hey boys, he thinks we're going to shout the half-time raffle winner." He says, "I've been coming here for 10 seasons, we've never announced the winner yet."
That sounds like Billy Thompson.
But talking of teams struggling, now correct me if I'm wrong, Ballingry Rovers, they only became a junior team.
Yeah, they were a top amateur team.
Yeah, I thought that. Yeah, but what I do remember, because I think maybe, I don't know, 2014, 15, I can't remember, but I think suddenly they were signing top names and they were going to be going places.
They signed it. They got a bit of money from somewhere, right? And the bit of money came from somebody who owned a scrap metal dealership somewhere, right, in Fife. And so they were signing boys like, for example, wee boy plays left wing for Arbroath, for Dundee. Bobby Lynn.
Yeah.
Bobby Lynn. They signed about 5 guys from East Fife, and they weren't in the Super League at that time. They were in the league below. and they spent an absolute fortune. Boy, Chris Egerty was one as well. A lot of boys who were playing at a senior level. One of the Campbell brothers as well, and they didn't win the league. They got promoted to the Super League as second, and the secretary of the club was one player on a contract for the following season. The money guy went away to Spain. There was no money left, and all these boys like Bobby Lynn then went to Arbroath. Bobby Lynn shouldn't have been playing at the lower division of junior level, but he was getting an absolute fortune. Yeah, big money. You're talking 500-600 quid a week, and they gave him a car as well. So I think it was 5 or 6 of them from the Dundee area who had signed them at that point. So they all left. Everybody just left the club, and they asked the boy, their chairman boy again, who I knew, phoned me and he says, "Would you come across?" And he says, "We'll try and resurrect this thing, but we're in the Super League and we shouldn't have been." And again, I took a boy in, a local boy, who was a Bobby, to work with me because he knew the local scene, and we were begging and stealing. I'll tell you a story. We went to, it was actually St Andrews, the last game of the season. We stayed up, we won the game, we managed to stay in the Super League, and we'd been better getting relegated because, again, couldn't compete financially. And I had a player, right? There's a boy, I'll not name the kid's name because it's unfair. So I had a player who wasn't getting a game for me, and Rosyth Juniors wanted to sign him. And I said to them, "I'll tell you what I'll do, give me a shot of your minibus to go to St Andrews and I'll give you the player." Right? And that was the deal. I got a shot of their minibus to drive to St Andrews, drive a team to St Andrews, and they got the player. I was waiting on a couple of chickens and stuff like that being thrown in the deal as well. And we came away from St Andrews, and I stopped at I was driving it, and we stopped at a traffic lights, and the front wheel fell off. and I had to abandon the minibus, you know, and just phone people and say, "You need to come and pick us up. We're stuck in St Andrews now," you know. Just a shambles. So the following season, I'll make this very brief. The following season, we played. We were getting through the middle of the season. The wages were terrible. The players weren't getting expenses. You know, trying to motivate people with that was very, very difficult. And then the HMRC got called in. They hadn't submitted any reports, funds for the last 5 seasons. They had a decent going social club where there was any corporation tax being paid. And my assistant at that time worked for HMRC, and he looked at it and he went, "No happening." The players got wind of that, you know. And then one night, the HMRC came in and they met us and they said, "Listen, I'm really, really sorry, but we're going to shut you. There was a tax bill of well into 6 figures. And we're going to, if you can't pay it, we need to shut you down." So the players, honestly, the last night of training, I didn't start the training. I just says, "Here's what's happening. The club's closing down. Oh, we're really disappointed." And every one of them was like on their phone. You know, "That's me. I'm free. I can go. I can come and sign me." You know. So I thought, I've had enough out of football. That's stunning me a wee bit, to be honest.
So, and ultimately, obviously, the wheels did come off for Bill and Gray in the end of the day. And has anything come out of the ashes? Is there an amateur team there now? Or?
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. They're in deepest Fife, and they had a really, really beautiful pitch, a fantastic playing surface, and a wee training facility and a social club. But it was in the wrong place. It was in the middle of nowhere. And there is a town called Ballingray, and I kept saying to them, "You need to move back into the village to get a bit of support to come along," because you were getting 150, 200 people coming to the game if it was a big team you were playing. So I got a bit peed off with that, and I thought, I've had enough of this lark, you know.
Willie, we couldn't have you on the show without speaking about your wee health scare. Obviously relevant with the recent news of Jim Leighton.
Mm-hmm.
Would you share with us the events that led up to that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, similar to Charlie, it's one of these things where if you don't speak up about it then and don't make people aware, then you're not going to get any sort of people thinking about their own situation. About 2 years ago, one of my pals had prostate cancer, and I says to him, "How did you get that? How did you know you had that?" And he says, "I was peeing during the night and up more regular than normal." And he says, I just went to the doctor, got a blood test, and he says, you've got prostate cancer. So I thought, I'm indestructible. You know, I've been a super fit athlete for at least 10 years of my life. And I'll go to the doctor and get this blood test anyway. So I went, and then he did some x-rays, and you know, if they just said to you, you've got a problem with your prostate, then you think, okay, I'll get something done about it. But as soon as they mention that other word, then it's like getting a custard pie in your face. You're thinking, wow. So 24th of June, a year passed, I had to go in, and they gave me a couple of choices what I could do, different treatments. And I thought, I'm just going to get this out. So I got my prostate out 24th of June. And I've been in a soapbox ever since, to be honest, Martin. I've been in Tam Cowan's show doing this. And again, similar to Charlie, I've got, all my friends knew about it. Unfortunately, 4 or 5 of my friends have been diagnosed with it. Have been treated because they've went early enough to go and catch it. Same with Big Jim, you know, I'm pally with Jim for a long, long time, and I phoned Jim a couple of years ago after his dad died, and I knew that Jim had said to me, dad died of prostate cancer. At that point, I have no knowledge of prostate cancer. Then I got it, and you start to do a bit of research, and it's hereditary. And I spoke to Jim about it. Jim went and got a test. You know, Jim was diagnosed with it as well. But has went and got treatment, and it's come through that, which is fantastic as well, you know. So, yeah, just it's one of these things where men in particular don't like bad news. Men don't like going to the doctor. I'm just saying, anybody who does watch this, and if there's over 20,000 people in it, I would imagine the majority will be men. And you're of a certain age of over 55, and you're up during the night, doing a pee more than normal, go to the doctor and get checked, you know, because I'm fortunate enough I did that. I went through the process, and I'm feeling great again, you know. But the flip side of that is the consequences is no going to the doctor, then that becomes a problem.
Once again, we'll put a slide up at the end of the show.
Yeah.
For anybody who wants any further information on prostate cancer. But Willie, thank you very much. We're very glad that you did go and see about it.
No, absolutely.
We're delighted to help put it out there on the show to make people aware.
And similar to Charlie, you know, I'm in Facebook, you know, and if anybody's watching and they've got a wee problem and they've got a question that they want answered and they don't want to go to doctors about it, get in touch with me. Just private message me. I'll be more than happy to come back and talk to you about it.
Willie, thank you very much for that indeed.
Yeah.
Dave.
I'm going to wind it up with Big Eric. Eric, after many, many years at Highland Park, I moved to Balmoral Stadium. An exciting time for the club, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It was spoken about when John met me in Stonehaven, actually. We met down the cafe there, and he spoke about us getting a new stadium at that point, 12 years previous to that. So for them to finally have it was just great. Absolutely. They've been needing it. They've outgrown Highland Park, and the facility they've got now is just superb.
Cove were ready to make the move into Scottish football, Scottish League football, weren't they? They had outgrown, in my opinion, they'd outgrown Highland League.
Yeah, as I say, I was not there from the start, but as we started to get more successful, I was there right the way through. I think the season before I joined, I think they got pipped when you applied to get in the leagues. Was it Annan got in, I think, the season before I joined? Was that 2007 maybe, 2006, 7?
Yeah, around that
so they
time.
missed out there. So there was always talk about it happening, but it just seemed a bit pie in the sky. And then for it finally happened as well, it was a great relief to everyone involved in the club that was finally going to get this new stadium.
And of course, you managed to do that with a double header against Berwick Rangers. I was at both games, and especially the game down there, it was a magnificent atmosphere that day, wasn't it? It was a lovely day and a huge crowd and a great atmosphere.
Yeah, it was superb. To be fair, I'd started that season. I played most of the games really. I missed a bit of pre-season, missed the first maybe 5 or 6 games I was into the team. Then got in the team maybe due to injuries, and had played all the way up to about November. And I think John went with another couple of centre halves, and I was kind of starting to get left out there. So it was a long kind of season, drawn out season, and I didn't think I got to play the last game of the season when we lifted the trophy. the Highland League trophy, and I thought that'd be the last time I'd get on the pitch, to be fair. So to be in cruise control in the league playoff and to get a wee 10-minute spell at the end of the game down at Berwick was superb. And what I took I remember going down to the stadium there. It was the first time I'd ever been to Berwick, and the playing surface down there, I thought it was going to be like a tatty field, so we couldn't play football, but it was one of the best pitches we'd played on all season. It was perfect. So the guys went out another couple of goals ahead, and I was fortunate enough to get on the pitch for, as I say, the last wee while, which was great.
Well, let's talk about a man who's synonymous with Cove Rangers. How important a figure was Alan McRae at Cove Rangers?
Alan, to be fair, he took a kind of a back seat. He was always like the godfather figure you saw up in the stands, and everyone knew who Alan McRae was. And he would speak to the guys, but no, he was much more a background figure, if anything, at my time in the club anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and let's look at now. You're still playing. You moved 2 years ago to Inverurie Locos. I take it you're enjoying that just as much as you did at Cove, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Travelling myself, actually, it gets a bit boring, really, for like training through the week and stuff like that. But the bypass there now as well, so you can get up to Inverurie in no time. So it's not too bad. So last season was good. I think we underachieved for the team and the players had. We should have a few more points adored in the league, and I definitely get a trophy. Fraser blew us away the second half of that cup game at Balmoral Park, actually. But no, been good. I say I've been at many clubs, so it was to start again, kind of fresh. I was the new guy, even though I'd been on a long time. I was still a new guy at that team, so I had to try and prove myself there again.
Mm-hmm. How old are you now, Eric? If it's not a terrible question.
I'm now 38. I'll be 39 come the end of this season, if this season ever goes.
Well, Roy McBain
39 in April.
Roy McBain.
It's April 16th, which has been good because I think I've picked up the Highland League twice on my birthday, which has been good.
Brilliant. Well, Roy McBain played into his 40s, and I'm sure
I'm getting a great signal now, Dave.
Do you think you can play another couple of seasons? I think you probably got that in you, Eric.
Hey, I don't know. The body does hurt in the mornings now, but I don't know. I think I've sacrificed my family life in the time I've been away from the house a lot. They've put up a lot the last 13. We'll also be going into the 14th season in the Highland League, so I think you never say never. And I've said it for years at Cove. Actually, this could be it. But I feel maybe, hopefully, we can go on. You just don't know what's happening with this season just now. But I think I'm due my family a wee bit more time on a Saturday now, to be fair.
Well, you've been a great ambassador, not just for yourself, but for Cove Rangers and for the Highland League, because I say, for 10 years in a row, you were the first name on my Highland League team sheet. It's been a delight to have you and Charlie and Willie on our show tonight, and thanks so much for that. Eric, before we go, how did you go on playing against Molby? Because he was a little pest, wasn't he?
To be fair, he would go down as one of my most difficult opponents because he was because me and Tyndall for a couple of years were quite a pairing, like, so used to get strikers that would come and play on one of us and then I end up going and play another one, but they just didn't know who to go and play on because they were as bad as each other. But Molby, he was tough. I remember you could kick him about and he would just come back. He was just a little lad as well, but he was very tough, wee boy.
Thanks for that.
And a very good player.
He was an excellent player. Back to you, Martin.
Dave, so do you have a head scratcher for us this week?
My head scratcher is about your own club, Martin, Peterhead. Peterhead have got a nickname. They're called the Blue Mogginers. What is a Blue Mogginer?
That's a good one. And if someone knows the answer, what do they do, Dave?
They go onto Twitter and they put in @UpTheDooney, which is our, I don't know what you call it, is our hashtag or our sign.
Tagline.
@UpTheDooney. Put your answer to us at @UpTheDooney, and we'll tell you the answer in our final programme next week.
Guys, it's been an absolute blast once again. Been great speaking football, and also really important to touch on some items of a more serious nature. And we thank you for sharing that with us. Charlie, great to see you. I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to see Forest Mechanics again, but if I get the opportunity, I'll make sure I can shout you out and we'll have a chat. Willie, brilliant that you've managed to join us in the show. Really appreciate it. There's a lot of Dons fans watch the programme, so they'll be delighted you were on. And Eric, I'll have actually seen you yesterday at Harlow Park. So
of course.
I hope it wasn't too much of a battle yesterday.
Martin, tell Jim McAnally I was asking for him, Martin. He was
I will indeed, yes.
a young boy.
I'll be sure to do that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next week, folks, we bring the curtain down on the current series. And we'll be joined by a former referee who had an astonishing career beyond both just the Highland League, out in Europe and national at a national level in Scotland. We'll have a mystery guest. Not only do they not know who they are, Dave and I don't know who they are because we haven't pinned them down yet. And we're also going to have a very special guest host who has Highland League football in their DNA. And we'll be joined also by numerous wheel-quaint faces throughout the show. And in addition to the curtain coming down, the tables might be turned as well. Didn't miss it, folks. 8 o'clock next Sunday. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Good night.